Lemnisk's Customer Data Platform Summit 2025. It is with great excitement that I welcome you all to the highly anticipated gathering. Your presence here, representing such a distinguished and diverse group of professionals, truly elevates the significance of today's event. Our theme for this year is enhancing the AI disruption, creating stellar customer experience with a CDP. In an era where artificial intelligence is reshaping industries at lightning speed, businesses must rethink how they engage with customers. Lemnisk brings together the brightest minds in the industry to unlock the phenomenal potential of customer data and AI. To kick off our summit, it gives me immense pleasure to introduce Rinku Ghosh, co-founder and chief operating officer at Lemnisk. I request her to deliver the welcome note to get us started this evening. Welcome.
Hi, good evening everyone, and a warm welcome to all of you to the Lemnisk CDP Summit. Let me begin with a brief introduction to Lemnisk. At Lemnisk, our mission is to empower enterprise marketing and customer experience leaders to achieve exceptional ROI. We do this by creating a real-time understanding of each customer, which then aids the creation of hyper-relevant one-to-one experiences that resonate deeply with the customer. Lemnisk is a recognized pioneer in the CDP space. We've been at the forefront of innovation in this category, whether it is by offering a robust and real-time customer one view, on which enterprise customers build the AI stack, or in offering a unique and scaled on-prem solution designed for enterprises with stringent data privacy and compliance needs. Customer data platforms have emerged as a game-changing and must-have technology. Our summit has helped the industry gain a deeper understanding of how to leverage technologies like CDP to drive data-driven and ROI-centric experiences. We have an outstanding lineup of speakers spanning industries who bring a wealth of expertise and perspective to the event. They're here to share actionable insights and spark conversations that will shape the future of customer engagement. I invite each of you to make the most of the sessions, engage with the speakers, and connect with your peers. Thank you, and let's get started. Over to you.
Thanks, Rinku. We would like to commence our event with our first panel discussion on the topic Notes from the Martech Kurukshetra. For this, I would like to welcome our first speaker, Francis Rodriguez, to the stage. Francis oversees the P&L for HDFC Life's e-commerce business, managing assets like the corporate website, mobile application, and buying journeys. He leads digital and performance marketing along with contact center fulfillment. His key achievements include revamping the HDFC Life's website, implementing a dedicated CRM for online business, and enhancing marketing automation. His efforts in the brand marketing, search marketing, social media, SEO, and customer journey optimization have positioned HDFC Life as the top private life insurer in searches and online revenue. With over 15 years at HDFC Life, Francis has held roles in the data labs, business insights, innovation, customer value management, and strategy. He brings nearly 2 decades of leadership experience across BFSI, FMCG, and consumer durables, excelling in scaling functions and driving growth. Francis holds an MBA from NMIMS Mumbai, is a CFA chartered holder, and has a bachelor's in electronics engineering. Welcome to the panel, Francis. Let me now welcome our second speaker, Girish Kalra. Girish is the Chief Marketing Officer at Tata AIA Life Insurance. He is an avid marketer and communicator with over 2 decades of experience across traditional and digital marketing, corporate communication, consumer propositions, etc. He has had impactful stints with companies in the maturity as well as the initiation phase. His diverse experience across advertising, consumer goods, mutual funds, and insurance has enabled him to take up interesting projects that positively influence consumer behavior, demand, and experience with the brands that he has worked with. In his personal time, he loves to read about technology trends and its impact on business and life. He's also keen on going into the depth of human life, including the spiritual side of our living. Girish is based in Mumbai and loves to travel for work and leisure. Welcome, Girish. To round off the first panel, we have the third speaker, Vivek Gupta. Vivek is a life insurance veteran with nearly 2 decades of experience spanning strategy, digital and innovation, customer centricity, data, process design, PMO, business solutions, operations excellence, and customer experience. Vivek has been with ICICI Prudential, PNB MetLife, and is currently with Bajaj Allianz Life. He has been instrumental in launching industry-first innovations like world's first virtual reality customer experience platform, India's first conversational app in insurance, and Smart Assist, world's first app-to-browser secured screen sharing platform, amongst others. Vivek has also been recognized as Digital Transformation Leader of the Year. Vivek has a master's in business management in finance and marketing and is also certified project management expert and design thinking practitioner with expertise in taxation laws. Welcome, Vivek. I would now like to welcome Shubham Chandrayan, Senior Director, Customer Success, Lemnisk, as the moderator of the panel. Welcome.
Welcome to the first discussion of the evening. During this discussion, we basically want to sort of pick your brains and understand your notes from the Martech Kurukshetra, specifically in today's world where technology is growing so fast with things like AI evolving as fast as it is. I'm sure it's very difficult for you to also sort of understand what is it that you exactly need and what is probably just fluff around the buzzwords or what is just a buzzword. And we wanted to sort of understand how do you identify, what is it that you really need versus what, the next shiny thing that probably a salesperson is trying to shove down your throat, right? So, and just sort of leading from that introduction, the first thing that I wanted to sort of understand is exactly how do you evaluate technology? How do you understand, what is usable, what is probably just a buzzword, and how do you sort of, at the same time, how do you stay ahead of this tech adoption game, right? And and at the same time is something that makes sense for you as well. So, yeah, maybe Francis.
A lot of fundamentals of business continue to remain the same. I think what's happening, especially in India, is that you're seeing a lot more happening from an end customer perspective. I mean, if somebody had asked me, would a 10-minute QSR be possible, say 10 years ago, I would have said, मेरे को नहीं लगता. I don't think so, right? But we've seen that change considerably, which basically keeps, makes me wonder, why we still take so long to issue policies, but still. But having said that, I think, a lot of change in technology is as well as, change in customer sentiments is predicated by what is the customer thinking today. And that's a function of broadly what convenience or what problem does technology solve. So if you have something which genuinely solves a customer problem, right? And it can be small problems also, right? So for example, you had to go and remember your net banking ID, password, etc. to ensure that you kind of paid your credit cards on time. And now you simply kind of do it over credit or whatever, or any other app that is there. It could be a small problem with that, or it could be a really big problem. As long as that happens, I think that technology is valuable and it's important. So that's a good sort of simple metric to measure as to what consumer problems it's solving, and basically how well is it going to make the life slightly more better or slightly more easier for the customer.
From an enabler perspective, to say that this may not lead to the final outcome from a business perspective, from a, say, a consumer metrics perspective, but is this going to enable a sort of change or, boost things with the larger ecosystem? So I think we look at both the things, because when it comes to tech, like things like CDP and all, and you're absolutely right, when the pitch is made, it's like you see it as if, how could we exist without a tech like this? But the moment you buy into the system and you just wonder where did all that go. But I think the enabling aspect gives us a good perspective that, and also it gives the confidence to not just us but also the management that yes, they have a visibility on this and this is how things will come out. So these are the two measures.
Interesting. Vivek, you have over time, actually we heard in your introduction as well, there's a lot of innovation that you've brought with your business innovations team as well. I wanted to hear your thought on how do you sort of get out of that noise.
Yeah, first I would like to apologize to the audience. बहुत सारा लाइफ इंश्योरेंस सुनोगे आप लोग यहाँ पे बिकॉज ऑल थ्री अस फ्रॉम लाइफ इंश्योरेंस इतना लाइफ इंश्योरेंस हम लोग कस्टमर्स भी नहीं सुनते अदरवाइज दे वुड हैव बॉट लॉट ऑफ पॉलिसीज फ्रॉम अस बट जोक्स अपार्ट see what happens, and I'll give you a little backstory on that. During my introduction, you would have heard about virtual reality based tech story. This was an introduction of last year, so they have played it this year. In this virtual reality based customer service platform which we made, that time virtual reality was the buzzword in the town, and you learn from your own failures, right? So we also went with this buzzword. Okay, virtual reality is the in thing. We created a good customer service platform where the customer will come, will wear the headset and will do the servicing. We thought that we have changed the world here. After maybe a couple of years, we realized that that's not working. That was the buzzword, like he mentioned. Someone sold us that technology. So it's very important. And why this backstory was there, it's very important that you realize that you will not be having big innovations in your regular day-to-day work. You will have incremental, if I can call innovations or incremental benefits for the organization. And you have to see where those technology is going to take you there. Once in a while, there will be a solution which will come, which will change the way your business is working. Otherwise, it will be incremental benefits. So I'll give you another example. We are working on a Gen AI-based solution, something called Smart Pitch, where we have more than 1.5 lakh agents. Agents are those freelance which don't actually have full-time employment with us. They do something else along with this, sell the policies as well. Plus we have 30 plus banks with us. Now teaching everyone our products, if you ask me my own products, I may not be able to tell all the features of all the 30 odd products which we sell. So just imagine a newbie selling all the stuff. So what we did is we created a platform where the pitches will be received by the person before basis the customer's persona. Persona means like your age, salary range, your lifestyle, your life stage, all those things. Now if I have to do this in a traditional way, I'll require 55 lakh permutation combinations to do that. But with the new technology coming in, I could do it maybe in 3-4 days. That's how the technology will help you in creating solutions. Another example you can say is, if we just look at, hindsight is always a good thing to, it makes life very easy. So if we go 1 year back, in terms of AI, what used to happen? We used to use it just from a life insurance perspective. We used to use in underwriting, which is basically checking the life of a customer, whether we want to give the policy, fraud detection, chatbots, or maybe a CDP kind of technology where we were identifying what time and date or what type of creative we need to send the customer. Now, with technology, it's changing so fast that now we can generate the content, we can send the different types of content, we can and get the analysis of that as well. So important to look at from a lens that it's not just saving us cost, it's also making us more agile. What used to take me 3 months to do, today I can maybe do it in 2 days. That's what the technology is helping us, and that's how it needs to be evaluated.
Great point. So, and we might probably continue with you since you have the mic. We talked up of all of this technology that you've adopted over the years, and it's not like your organizations are 5 years old or 10-year-old organizations. Like these are massive organizations that have been doing this for years and years now, which means at any given point in time, you probably have a mixed stack of new age technologies and old legacy technologies. And I also understand that change management isn't as easy as it sounds to a customer success manager like me, who would probably be pushing you on a day-to-day basis, integrate your CRM with us, integrate your LMS with us. It's definitely a very difficult task. We understand that. So how do you, whenever you're looking at a new piece of technology, how do you ensure, one, it is properly integrated to your legacy stack, as well as things that you might have acquired 2 years back or 3 years back or 4 years back? And how do you ensure smooth transition? Because change management, I understand, is as difficult as it gets for an organization your size, right?
Yeah, very rightly said. Just to give you an example of Bajaj Allianz, we have a core system called Opus. Now, this is a system which is around 30, 40 years old. Naturally, Bajaj Allianz is not that old, but because we have Allianz as a partner, we have this system which is pretty old. We are in the process of transiting into a new policy admin system. So, those who are not from life insurance, policy admin system is the backbone of the whole industry. So, whole complete data of the customer and the distributor, everything is based in policy admin system. Now just imagine me migrating, a migration project is going on in the organization from a legacy system to a new system, and we try to integrate a platform like CDP into it. It's not going to happen. It's the priority of the organization will always be how successful the migration of the legacy system is. Hence what we did was, and I believe that's the way it should be in most of the cases, is that we created a layer on top of both the systems to have a seamless data flow between both the systems. This layer we call something called as Customer 360. It has more than 500 attributes of the customer from across both the systems. And from this, we have integrated a CDP layer. So here my distributor also gets to see that. My backend team also integrates the API, this is there, and then we are able to integrate any changes which come into CDP, sorry, on any new technology and build it into it. So that's how we have worked on the legacy part of it.
So probably I'll put this to Girish. Again, two giant organizations coming together, AIA and Tata. I'm sure you also have a massive stack of legacy as well as new age technologies. How do you tackle that on a day-to-day basis, and how difficult is change management for you, and how do you sort of go around that?
So I'll tell you, when you look at tackling this, honestly, I don't have the answer to this. We've also been trying to figure out the answer to this, because yes, we do have not 40 years, but 20 years of legacy systems. The private sector came to life in 2001, so it's been about 23 years now. So there is no clear answer that, this is how we'll tackle the thing. What we really see is that once you get into implementation is when the worms start coming out and you say, oh shit, we didn't see that and this was not so evident and things like that. So I think the way to go ahead is be cognizant of that, and I think that also helps you in the change management part and making sure that you're not going overboard with the expectations to the management, saying, it will be a 5x jump in business and all that stuff. But yeah, you basically need to sort of, to the extent possible, and this is where I sort of push our vendors to at the point when the pitch is happening, that imagine that you came on board and, now let's talk, what is it that you offer to us? And we try and also, in that situation, make the compensation like, rather than saying, okay, you buy this tech from me, this is the expense it's going to be for you, whatever retainer and fixed cost, to saying that, can you be a partner in this journey? That, this is what you're promising to me, saying as this is going to be the benefit out of it, so much X times increase in business. So instead of saying that I'll pay you $100 for it, let me pay you $70 here, and over there I'll pay you, say, $40. So eventually you make more money, but then the thing which will work out is you will put in your best to make sure that this thing works. I'll put in my best. In the process, both of us will work. So I think that's the way we try and get those deals through. And the other thing is, of course, you go step by step to say, okay, there are these 30 use cases that you told me are possible. Let's try the first 3. Let's show that, this works, and let's learn from that. Also convinces the management to say that, yes, because everybody today is in the quarterly results world. So you want to see results fast. So The moment you break it into use cases and say, okay, these three, you said this, more or less you are there. I think that is the way it works. Coming to the point of change management, I would say it's a big task, and I would say it's twice more difficult than actually choosing the tech, because there you're talking of basically getting people along, right? You're trying to get your own people along, that this is something new and I want to use it. At the same time, you're getting other functions to work along with you. So it's again, it's more about sort of how do you approach them. Saying, if you were to say that, okay, we have this tech, this is what it's going to do to us, it will this and that. Intuitively, I don't think the other party will be recipient to that. Saying it's all about for them, right? They will benefit, they will look good and things like that. So why should I be helping them? But the idea is to say that if you become a partner to this, and this is how mutually it will help us. And actually, there, if you try and keep a little backseat and push the other entity forward, make them more visible, I think that is something which we've seen work. Otherwise, it's a very tricky area.
So you mentioned three very interesting things, right? There's change management, of course. There's business outcome, and then there's, of course, technical effort of integrations as well, right? So when you're taking that decision on day one, how much weightage do you give to each of these, or is it, as in terms of, do you look at business outcomes as probably, as business people, of course, that's probably the biggest weightage, but then change management and technological effort, how do you look at these three?
So I would first put business outcomes, and the reason I say that is because you're investing money into that. So you, of course, that's a demand a business is going to make with you, saying finally what happened. And I would say in India the way it works is this classic word called jugaad. So tech se nahi hua to aise ho hi jata hai, right? And the insurance industry is known for that. Last, maybe make sure things work out. So business is, of course, looking at what is the investment. That's the world in which we look at. So yeah, that would be the first one. Second, I would say more or less very close to it is change management, because it is the people who will make it work. Tech, I would say I give the least importance, and the reason I do that is, like you said in your introductory part, to say that literally every 6 months there is absolutely a completely new thing. So the CDP that which we have today, in 6 months you guys will only come to us and say this is very old stuff, and we have a entirely new thing. So I don't think we should rely too much on the tech of today.
I think that's for a product team also, which is here, for them to note. Okay, so Francis, you also come from probably one of the bigger group organizations, at least in India. There's a bank, there are different insurance companies as well, and I'm sure there's a lot of mandate that comes your way versus there's a lot of decisions that you have to take for yourself. Wanted to understand your views on how do you look at legacy systems that are being thrown your way? Do you always have to adopt it, and how do you measure a new system coming in? How do you integrate that? How do you go about that as well?
So number one, I think at least HDFC as a group, and I can speak in the limited capacity, I've just worked with one of its companies for 15 years, but does not kind of push or mandate any usage of system across. Each of the individual companies has fairly an independent sort of set of evaluations to do that. There will be some common sort of guidelines around things like ensuring InfoSec, ensuring some of the other pieces of security, and whatever is regulatorily required. Definitely, that though is law of land. But beyond that, there is not much of an insistence. Yes, there is that if you choose and you decide to work with the same partner, then yes, there is some exchange of notes to figure out how we can kind of improve the best possible deal for the group as a whole. Right? So that's basically some amount of it. That's more on the procurement side rather than on the tech mandate side. Right? So that was number one. Number two, I think a lot of how to integrate has already been kind of covered, but let me just tell you a couple of things that I think are important. So one is, use case by use case, start building things. Simply, if you kind of also at each stage and each point, there is this thought process around, okay, what is the optimum amount of integration? In the sense, if I do it only for the use case, I might end up saying that, okay, every time I need 2 more fields, I need to go build another 2 APIs, whatever else, right? So it cannot be as basic as that. At the same time, it's not like, okay, let's do everything and then only we'll start, right? So it has to be how to optimize at each stage is how much, I mean, obviously more is good, but how much is good enough, and kind of move ahead with that. The second fairly important piece is to kind of ensure that there is, again, taking a leaf from change management, it is basically implementation and outcome, right? If you have success in smaller use cases, it becomes much more easier to go and sell a larger use case to the organization, right? Internally also. So you said, okay, yes, we tried this, it's worked. This is the improvements that we see in all these metrics. Hopefully, if it's a revenue metric or a cost reduction metric, which is some financial metric directly getting impacted, the much better. Right? It's therefore becomes much more easier to have your second and third order conversations of what to do more. Right. Finally, I think there is this whole thing about is everybody in it together? I mean, only business-driven change may ignore a lot of things which are required from an overall IT perspective, and an only IT-driven change may not necessarily kind of have business completely on board when it comes to ensuring adoption and ensuring that there is an outcome which is kind of coming from this entire piece. So ensuring that partnership is kind of moving smoothly, I think that's fairly important across various integrations.
Interesting, and that brings me to probably the next rabbit hole that I wanted to go into, and maybe I'll want to start with you, Girish. We've talked of technology and business as two different groups, but within business as well, and I'm sure within your teams as well, you're looking at multiple different goals. There's new customer acquisition, there's retention, there's branding, and all of those. So when you're start of the year, when you're looking at strategies, or when you're not just start of the year, but also when you're trying to probably onboard a new tool or a new technology, like Francis mentioned, you would probably want to start small with a couple of use cases that go into it. How do you ensure lateral integration there, and where do you start? Like, how do you make sure that one, everybody around that benefits from it, but at the same time, I don't want everybody to be jumping into that pool at the same time. So how do you go about that?
See, if it starts with, are you sort of, asking a vendor, okay, come and meet me and tell me what's new? Or is it like, basis your understanding of the business, you say, this is where I think either the impact could be much better, or certain efficiency parameters can be much better. So I think you start at that point, and then of course you scout around saying what are the ways to do this. And again, I can say that, in not every case tech works or tech is required. You have cases where you say that, the way the funnel is, I can optimize the funnel in other ways, not necessarily tech coming in. So I think you need that conviction within you to say that, okay, what is it that I need to do and how I need to do it. Tech should be the last part to say that, okay, it will solve this problem. So I think we start off that way. And then, of course, whichever tech you look at and all, I think the point which I was trying to make earlier also is, don't go too much into the technicals, like, okay, this system has this features, because it actually, what happens is the more feature driven, the more sort of rigid system you have, the bigger problem it creates for you. Like, honestly, when we talk about legacy systems, especially in our case, I can say I don't think we have the solution to that. And it's not easy. You may know the solution, but at the end of the day, is it a cost-effective solution? And at times you just consciously say, let me live through this, because that investment otherwise is too huge. And if it's going to take me 10 years to get that investment out and start seeing the real benefits out of it, I would rather not do that, because I'm very sure Lemnisk will come in 2 years and say that, okay, here is something that we want to offer you. So I can't say there is a clear answer to this, but I think it's all about the clarity that you have, the clarity that you can give to your organization, and that's how you move forward.
So just expanding on that part, and I'll keep tech aside for a bit, right? start of the year again, when you look at business goals for that year, that goal will divide into smaller goals for each of these teams. When you talk of branding, retention, customer acquisition, and all that, how do you ensure that permeates properly so that each team has their own smaller strategy that leads to that one final goal?
So in our case, it's a bit different. We don't look at goals at the beginning of the year saying, okay, next year FY26, I need to achieve so much business or so much things. We actually go through a 3-year cycle. So saying, if I am planning for today, I'm planning for the goals for the next 3 years. It sort of gives you a sense of continuity and that longer, slightly medium-term visibility that, okay, this is where we want to achieve, what we want to achieve. And then, of course, you break it into what is it possible this year, what is possible next year. So any sort of tech that we want to bring into the system or any new initiative that we want to start, any change in the funnel is seen from that lens rather than a single year.
Vivek, I'll probably ask you the same question, but from your perspective as well, if you're looking at it from business innovations point of view or purely from marketing point of view, when you look at your funnel, how do you make sure how you envision your funnel permeates down to your teams, and each of those teams sort of work towards that funnel finally looking the way that you want it to look by the end of the year or by end of the quarter, if that is how you work? How do you?
Fact is that funnel is only an input parameter. So you have to look at business output, the growth or the business numbers as the output parameters. And just to take the point which Girish mentioned, we have a cycle of 4 years every year, which we plan for. So every year we have something called long range strategy planning, LRS, which we call it. Every year we plan for the next 4 years. And here the blue sky thinking comes into picture. Where what we do here is that we plan, maybe these are the technologies which are coming into picture, these are the business goals we want to achieve, these are the kind of projects or use cases which we are seeing. And something which Francis mentioned, not necessarily you go with a big project immediately, but you just test the waters there. So we go with those use cases where we can test the waters in the first few months. Now, with MarTech solutions, especially if I have to talk about, the ROI calculation becomes very difficult. So ROI is if I have to say, ROI is the most binding factor for any project in the organization if you have to prioritize. With MarTech, it becomes very difficult because how do you attribute it? That because of MarTech, it has, the customer has actually bought your policy, if I have to talk in life insurance language. There can be some direct attributes. You may say that maybe just for example, you have sent an email to a customer has clicked on the link and has bought the policy. So you can attribute it directly because you have those tools. Otherwise, how would you do it? Maybe customer is window shopping, you have sent it, customers went on multiple websites, bought it or bought to a distributor. It's very difficult to do that. In this sense, hence it becomes very important that you take direct attributes which are there and indirect as well, overall goals for the organization. Otherwise, your projects will not be prioritized anyways. Hence, here what we do is we take those small projects, small use cases, and like just to connect it to the earlier discussion which we were having on the legacy system, we don't build it on the legacy system. We don't try to integrate. So just to talk about Lemnisk CDP, when we did this around 4 years back, we didn't integrate with any of our systems at the start. We just did a kind of proof of concept for maybe 6 months. So test the waters. We saw whether it is actually benefiting us or it's something which is technology which we don't want to get into. When we saw the success, then we slowly integrated it and built it over the next 3-4 years, and that's how the part of the planning is. If I have answered your question.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, you've answered. So I'll point it to you also, Francis. When you're looking at your goals every year, I'm sure it's not the easiest task to make sure everybody else within your team and at your level you don't have 4, 5, 6 people, right? You have a massive team working under you and people working under them as well. How do you make sure that your business goals are permeated down to everybody and the belief is in those goals is as strong within them as it is within you?
So multiple things. I think to start with, one is there has to be not just a lot of times specifically, in the entire marketing to sales funnel, it's seen as a relay race, right? So top of the funnel does some nice creatives, hopefully creates some audience or maybe some website visits. The performance marketing remarkets to them. They create leads, they give it to the fulfillment teams. The fulfillment teams either call or do something else. They basically create receipts or whatever. I mean, places where money is collected. And these receipting things are given then to the issuance team to kind of issue. The moment you start looking at a relay race, everybody's job gets over, once that baton gets passed. In reality, it doesn't happen that way. I mean, because the customer doesn't see you as, a neat sort of assembly line. He sees you as one sort of amorphous whole, right? As an organization, and he's interacting with that organization. So two things are very important. One is, if you're not able to kind of move things ahead, move it back, right? So that you always remain. A good example is take the metaphor of a relay, and instead of that, think of it as a football match, right? Any great teams always ensure possession of the ball, and that's what you need to do: ensure possession of your customer, right? And that might require sometimes passing it back, sometimes passing it forward, or doing things this way. So I think that's one very important thing. That translating to KPIs would mean that even if you're you would have some amount of outcome-based KPIs, even if you're relatively more upstream in the process. It's not that your entire KPI sheet will be that, but there will be some element which basically ensures the success of your customer to whom you're passing on, the next baton to. Right? So I think that is one piece. From a technology perspective, it's much easier for technologies which are relatively downstream because they directly impact some CX or they impact some revenue metric. For a lot of technology which is upstream, data lake, CDP, etc. It's very important to figure out how to create that straight line through some maybe intermediate technologies or intermediate pieces across, so that it kind of links to that downstream in some way. That's
a fairly interesting point, and I'd probably want to continue with you there. And we've time and again talked of, incremental benefits. We've talked of how you don't necessarily need to always be looking at the whole picture always, and you have to look at smaller wins. So when start of a year or a quarter, or like you mentioned, probably 4 years, when you're creating that plan, when you're on that drawing board, you probably have a very big picture of things which looks beautiful. But how do you, one, identify your lower hanging fruits and the smaller wins? And at the same time, how would you ensure that the larger picture is still maintained, right? When you're planning for a year or 4 years, it's at times, I'm sure it's difficult for teams downstream to forget the larger picture and just be chasing what we're chasing today or tomorrow or this quarter. How do you ensure that it will always translate into the larger goal down the year or down 4 years down the line?
I think the key role for at least management to play is to keep reminding people of how does your current actions translate to the larger picture, right? Because anyways, there's not much, most of the doing is being done by the team. So I think that is very important to ensure that are you kind of replaying the larger picture or showing where each person fits into the larger mosaic, right? And I think that communication is, I don't think there is enough of it in some sense. I mean, you can keep doing more, right? And it's always useful, right? So I think communicating as well as sometimes over communicating is important. Also, in some cases, changing tracks is relatively important. You realize that things are not working, are not going in the way you want to go. The means may change. As long as the end is being objective is being met, it's sometimes important to kind of say, okay, let's look at what are the other ways to reach the same goal.
Fair enough. And I'd probably, Girish, if you could help me, you mentioned that you don't always, at the start of the year might say 2026 we'll do 5x and so, but you are mostly focusing on the smaller wins or what's in front, the goalpost in front of you right now. The same question to you, how do you ensure that you still achieve that 5x by the end of the year if when I'm sure your teams are looking at that first goalpost in front of them, probably end of this quarter, how do you ensure the...
So I think the way it works is when you talk of the larger picture, and I think it starts with what do you want to achieve, and it's an organization call, and then you see that how I can contribute. But if you are looking at bridging the gap between the small wins and the larger purpose is, see, before you get into a tech, and tech of course is expensive, right? It's not like I'll pay 5 lakhs and get a big tech. We're talking crores over here. So you of course go through that uh, phase of, deep diving and figuring out what is there really in this. I think you need to create that map to say, okay, this is what is going to be the real big benefit coming out of this, right? And then you say that what is the sort of timeline it will take for it. And given the way the process works with any tech is, of course, there's a dialogue which happens, right? So the moment you are doing that dialogue, it's very important that also you make your vendor or partner understand that what is it that you're really trying to achieve. So that's the reason I stress really on, say, the business aspect, or how Francis spoke about the consumer aspect, because many times I've seen that, partners get into this whole, they just get into that zone of, okay, this is the tech, this is how, savvy it is, this is the sort of features it has, and the high chances you get swayed into that and forget that what are we really trying to achieve here, right? So I think you need to be really conscious about that finally what is it that I'm trying to achieve. You need to be very clear in terms of each of these use cases. One purpose of those use cases is to make sure that you know you're winning. The other purpose of the use cases is to say that are you progressing, right? So when I say define 10 use cases, and I say I'll put it in the metrics of saying one is on the effort basis, which use case takes how much time and effort. Other is on the impact basis. And that's where you do your sort of mathematics to say that I may want to start with a low impact use case, but if it is also a low effort use case, because I want to show that win not just to management, but also to my people. That, okay, you got into this tech, you're working on it, you can clearly see a win happening, say, in the next 3 months or so, and you get that visibility. So I think you have to go through all those factors. But the key point is, you as the owner of the project needs to be very clear that how is each step leading to that next flow. And you need to keep giving that confidence to the internal stakeholders, the external stakeholders, that you know where things are going.
Thank you. Lastly, Vivek, and we heard the bell a little bit back, but I really wanted to hear from you on this point, because you mentioned you have 4-year plans, and I'm sure this question, when it comes to a year and your quarter-on-quarter growth reaching that year-end goal, is still slightly, seems, at least from here, still seems like a slightly easier problem. How do you track it over 4 years?
So 4 years, like I mentioned, it's for vision. You define your vision, what you want to do in the project, or in terms of technology or use case over the 4 years. It's important here that then this vision is also percolated to the last mile. See, this part is very important. Sometimes we can miss on this part, because the communication will drive the alignment. If the communication is not there with the person who is actually executing, the alignment will not be there. But not necessarily the last mile will be able to visualize or agree with your vision there. Hence, it's important that then you break this up into multiple small projects or small parts of the which has to be executed. This is where then you define the success metric. Hence, the person who's actually executing knows that over the next 3 months has to reach the goalpost, which he or she is able to see. Once that happens, slowly you then progress on the project over the next 4 years. And that's how we have been doing this over the last many years in terms of LRS.
Thank you, everyone. I'm sure we've all learned a lot from this session about strategy and adopting technology. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Francis, Girish, Vivek, and Shubham, for the very interesting and insightful conversation. I would now like to invite Rinku to the stage to present a token of appreciation to the panelists. Let us now move on to the next discussion on the theme Atithi Devo Bhava, the data imperative in hospitality. For this panel discussion, I would like to first invite Deepa Krishna. Deepa is the head of marketing for India and Southwest Asia at Hyatt. driving strategic marketing, brand development, loyalty initiatives, and innovation across the region. With over 23 years of experience, she has held key leadership roles, including Chief Marketing Officer at Tata Starbucks, where she led marketing, category, loyalty, and digital. Previously, Deepa served as Executive Director of Strategy at Kantar and Head of Branding and Marketing Communication at Idea Cellular. She has also contributed to innovation strategies at Diageo India and worked with global brands like Unilever, Mondelez, and Philip Morris on customer trends and brand repositioning at the Futures Company. At Godrej Appliances, she played a pivotal role in marketing, new product development, and rural market expansion. An IMDR graduate, Deepa is passionate about studying consumer trends and leveraging innovation to create strong business impacts. A warm welcome to you, Deepa. Next, I would like to invite on stage Dilpreet Singh. Dilpreet is a seasoned loyalty and customer experience professional with 2 decades of experience across varied industries like hospitality, QSR, and retail. He is a certified loyalty marketing professional of the Loyalty Academy US and has been instrumental in developing and managing scalable loyalty programs, powering the 2 greatest growth levers, retention and lifetime value. Welcome, Dilpreet. I would now like to invite our third speaker, Balaji Venkatraman, to the stage. Balaji is a partner with Deloitte South Asia. He specializes in digital transformation strategy and marketing. He helps brands to find new market and customer, scale the acquisition, and drive retention. Balaji, a warm welcome to you. As a moderator for this panel discussion, I would like to invite Subra Krishnan, CEO, Lemnisk. Welcome.
I think I'm especially excited by this panel, I would say, for 2 reasons. First, I think I can speak for everybody in this room when I say that we are all consumers of hospitality, right? I think all of us travel fairly extensively, I'm sure. So in many ways, all of us do have a strong point of view, and in many ways, we're curious about what goes on the other side. So from that perspective, I think this is going to be a very informative session, I would say. And second, which probably is a segue to the first question that I will ask each of you, is I cannot think of many industries, of course, healthcare being another, and I'll cover that with Madhi in some time. I cannot think of many more industries that saw such a big drop during COVID and such a fantastic rebound on the other side of it. And a lot of it is because I think COVID fundamentally changed the nature of this industry. So maybe that is probably the leading question with which I would want to start. Maybe I'll start with Deepa, you, and then Dilpreet and Balaji. Just set the context for all of us here about 2 things. What are some of these big shifts that you're seeing in the industry, in guest preferences? And number 2, what does this mean for what the guests are now expecting? Like what is guest experience? How are they changing and evolving? Maybe Deepa, you could go first.
Thanks, Shubhra, and very good evening, everyone. And you have to promise me you'll have the next event at Hyatt. All right. So I think you're absolutely right. The kind of a seesaw that the hospitality industry has seen in the last 4 or 5 years is kind of unprecedented. What has happened is, from a time in 2019 where things were kind of on the rise, everything kind of more or less shut in 2020. But the good news is that we've all long forgotten COVID. It's history and beyond, and I'll tell you why. So let's look at some of the numbers. If we look at the number of trips Indians are taking, it's expected to move from 1.5 billion trips in 2019 to 5 billion in the next 5 years, right? So that's the kind of quantum jump that you're looking at. Travel expenditure spent by Indians is expected to move from $150 billion in 2019 to $410 billion in 2030. So all of these are like live statistics that we have on the ground, which really show how the industry is bursting. And I would actually say that this is really the dawn of India's travel century, that it started. You will see that Indians are not only going to be shaping the kind of travel that happens in the region, but increasingly in ASPAC. A lot of our sister countries, whether it's Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, etc., would increasingly rely on Indians traveling to those destinations, and of course various other markets. So I think that's kind of a large perspective. How have preferences changed? I think in a sense, COVID has made us all realize how short life is, and it has made people stop postponing things for tomorrow very clearly. I think, maybe even 10 years back, the whole cycle was that you get a job, you probably at a certain time buy a house, buy a car, and then you may want to travel. It's completely turned on its head now. You look at any 20-something, they're not even interested in buying a house. They don't see any value in buying a car because transport is so easy, and you want to travel. You really want to travel and experience the world. So the world is really moving from this materialistic economy to a very, very sharp experiential economy, which is great news for us. And it has various effects on segments, right? So if you look at Gen Z, for example, they're very clearly already born into this, and they are spending like never before. Millennials who have kind of been caught at the cusp, when COVID happened and they were kind of making certain life choices, are postponing responsibility for experiences. So they're deciding maybe not to have kids, maybe to have a pet so that they can travel, etc. Right? And if you look at Gen X, they're very clearly saying that let's not save money for our children. Let us spend what we have. And that's bad news for some of the kids, but yeah, it is what it is. And they therefore want to live life, right? So I think all of these things, a fundamentally strong economy, infrastructure built on travel and tourism, very, very seminal consumer shift is all fantastic news for the travel industry.
That's a great platform to tee this off to you. Dilpreet.
So I resonate the same feeling like Deepa said. So just to add on to that thing, so like again, when we are talking about specifically the hospitality industry. So I believe like hospitality industries, like today everyone is talking about CX, which is the customer experience. So I personally believe the origin of CX is the hospitality industry because it operates on the fundament of home away from home. So whenever you are out, whether for business or for vacation, so like you need someone who is able to understand your requirements, your need, and then is able to pamper you in a way you want to be. So that is one. Second is like again, when I'm talking about the experience, so like again, there has been a lot of debate in terms of the YOLO syndrome, which is the you only live once, inspired from the legendary Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara. So I believe like it is definitely there, but I personally believe it is short-lived. Because like again, it has to come from within. So like people who are having different traits and different personality, if they want to kind of postpone thing, even when there is a kind of a FOMO or the YOLO thing which is there, so like people are I would say judging you in terms of you are not spending money on hotels or other retail brands and all, and you are just staying at home. So like it's a kind of a FOMO which is happening, but like unless and until it is not coming from within you, you will not be kind of doing that thing. So it's very difficult to kind of change you for that thing. So personality plays a very important role. So yeah, YOLO or this revenge travel which was there, so that actually plays a very important role, but to me it is very short-lived. That is one. Second is like again the kind of industry we are operating into. So it is very need driven and intent based. Unless and until you are not having a travel requirement, even if a brand is kind of throwing away a good deals in terms of 50% off, 70% off, you will not be coming that thing. So like again, if we just have to kind of break it in a very simple manner in terms of like what hospitality is all about. So like what are the different segments which are there? So like again, there are three main use cases of the segments why people are using hotels. One is for the business, one is for the leisure, second is for the MICE, which is the meeting incentives and conferences and events, which is there like this one. So like again, and it is also divided into two parts. So one is the social gatherings in terms of your birthday parties or anniversaries or weddings, or the corporate gatherings which would be there. So that is there. So again, like every business which is there or any person who is there, so like they will be coming under this thing. Now Deepa spoke about like the traditional segmentation which we are having, the Gen Z, Gen Y, millennials and all. So one of the biggest thing which has actually kind of happened post the pandemic period is there is a emergence of a new segment which is Henry, which is high earners, not rich yet. So people are kind of earning, so like straight after, like if I have to compare what it used to be 20 years back when we started our career. So like that point of time, like the typical starting salary and typical starting salary now. So there has been a kind of a jump of almost 10 to 15x to that thing. So considering all these factors, people really want to kind of enjoy their life. They want to do take all these vacations also. They want to kind of spend their money wisely also. That is one thing. So savings is one aspect. So looking at it is very subjective to that extent. But yeah, I think like CX plays a very important role. So like again, whenever people are feeling okay, so like this is a brand who is able to kind of identify me, because also the thing is like one of the biggest shift which has happened post pandemic is like today everyone is living in an experience driven economy. So today when I'm talking about the experience driven economy, so what that means is like earlier when we used to kind of do a competition benchmarking or how it is working, so like it used to be the brands which are operating in my industry also, but right now that is not the case. So today people are comparing you with brands which are outside your industry also, because like again if you're talking about a hotel, the end mile delivery is happening when you are staying at the hotel, but like whenever you are kind of making a booking on my brand website or my mobile app, the kind of browsing experience which you want, that has to be in line with when you're doing the same thing on, let's say, on the Amazon or the Netflix. So as a responsible brands, you have to make sure the kind of resonance which you are able to kind of create with your consumers, that is next level.
Balaji, I would like you to weigh in this, and of course, both of them have set a fantastic platform. I would like to understand your thoughts on what is changing in the industry, but also maybe weigh in a bit more on how the guest expectation is changing as a result. What are you seeing there, right? So maybe talk a little bit more about that as well, please.
Indeed. Experience is now taken for granted. Okay? But taking a cue from both the hoteliers, the fundamental aspect that has changed is, Henry, the premiumization. Anything and everything. If I get into a hotel, whatever be the segment it is, I want a premiumization there. And also, with the statistics of every family or an every individual, they have different purpose or a reason now to travel. One is, we have now segmented the travel after COVID. One is a religious tourism. One is, I go alone, okay, as a backpacker. And another important segment, another one is the family travel. So there is a segment that was created among the travel, purpose for the travel and the reason for it. And these gets into atomic segmentation when it comes to preferences of the travelers with the brand. So the brands today are at the cusp of changing. Should I create more than one experience with the different kinds of brands that I need to have, catering to different segments of customers who are traveling? So that is the tectonic shift that is happening within the business. While the travelers expect the business need to respond to it, and that response is now happening, and in the next 3 to 5 years, it's going to happen at scale.
So then let me start this way around, because I'll give you the opportunity to build on this. So the nice segue that I would like to take here is, if the industry is changing, you're seeing greater intent, diversity of segments, brands are actually thinking of premiumization, as you rightly said. It also calls to question the readiness of these brands to cater to these guest expectations, right? Specifically, readiness from two perspectives. A, are they ready from a data perspective? Because obviously all of this is going to be driven by data. And second, are they even ready from a workflow perspective, right? So just the front end and the back end being seamlessly connected, and being able to do these little things which seem to go a long way. So what is your take on that, and what needs to be done there? And then I'll move around.
All right. On the data part, everyone says we have data. But the data that was collected over the last decade, or even over the last 5 years, some of the data are getting meaningless or obsolete. A traveler looks for a sustainability as a metric to stay or associate themselves with a brand. Is that data with me now to drive that preference and personalization? No. But gone are the preferences where I want a feather pillow, or I want near to the elevator. These are all hygiene. Now, there is a micro preferences that are expected from the traveler based on the purpose in which they are traveling. And there is a clear blurring that is happening between business travel and leisure. Okay? So there is when I am a business traveler and I want to get into a leisure, there is a shift in terms of preferences and how the brand can personalize the traveler. So this is an important point, and there is a work in progress with all the businesses today.
Dilpreet, do you want to weigh in on that?
So you touched base upon a very important point of premiumization. So I believe like premiumization is definitely there. So like today's consumer is able to and willing to spend more. However, when I'm talking about the premiumization, it is directly correlated with differentiation, which comes from the brand side. So today, if I talk about, let's say, hospitality per se, so like hospitality again, like as a luxury hospitality business which is there could be three, or I would say four blocks to that thing. So starting with a kind of a commodity. Commodity is okay, so like any, like a smaller room is there with the basic amenities, like your bed is there, your AC is there. So again, like, and the beauty of that is like you can scale it up. So in an year, you can kind of add 5,000 to 10,000 inventory in that thing. So like people might not be paying differentiation for that thing, the premiumization for that thing. The next is the product. So product is also like you are having this commodity plus your F&B part is there. So like you are having some super specialty restaurants attached to that thing. So people are willing to pay more to that thing. The third aspect to that is the experiential. When I'm talking the experiential, okay, so like you are adding a layer of sustainability. You are adding a layer of wellness. So that would also be there. The last but not the least is the transformation. So transformation is something which today everyone is looking forward to and people are willing to pay premium to that thing. That is one thing. Second is like again, one of the biggest concern which people are having at the moment is like the rates are very high. So like that is one of the biggest thing which I tend to hear whenever I meet my members also, or I meet some other people also. So we need to understand this is a kind of a perfect blend of the demand and supply. So like again, today, wedding season is there. So like you would be hearing, so like obviously like 45 lakhs weddings are happening and stuff like that. So in that case, like the kinds of rates which are being there. So because that is the case, like if I'm talking about the hotel industry, there are typically 40 to 45 days in an year. So which is typically 12% of the total which is there, where everyone has to do the wedding. So in that case, if the supplies part is not there, so rates would definitely be high. So in that case, like again, I would say that is just one example to that thing. But yeah, like coming to your point in terms of premiumization, so like again, it has a kind of a correlation with what kind of expectation you are having from the product. So if you are able to kind of get that product, people are willing to pay more on that.
So then, Deepa, just building on the premiumization point, obviously this calls to question the need for readiness, and that Balaji touched upon that. But maybe you could also touch upon how does let's assume that there is a data framework in place, and let's say these processes are in place. The next logical step would be deriving intelligence out of it and just being able to use technologies like AI and ML and being able to now apply that in a practical context to drive this superior guest experience. So what does that world look like, and how are you approaching this? Some ideas on that.
So, according to me, premiumization is one part of what's happening in the hospitality industry. The changes are far more complex. Because if you really look at it from the point of view of a matrix, you can look at travel as, what are the occasions or, reasons for travel, which has already been covered. Like it could be business and leisure, and, it could be MICE, social, etc., etc. And then comes this whole hyper segmentation of what kind of a person are you? And therefore, what is your requirement for travel, right? So within leisure, we are seeing, for example, a growing trend of slow travel or wellness travel or rise in sustainability, and of course maybe very luxurious experiences, etc. So I think the landscape is honestly far more complex than just saying premiumization. That's the first thing. The second point is, do we have the data? I think unlike, let's say, FMCG or durables, our industries and I think retail are interacting with consumers every day. You can put a name and face to every consumer that you're seeing every day. That's the advantage of our industry, right? So not only do we have data, but we also really know customers. But of course, just because you have data doesn't mean it's going to be the best use of it, right? And there comes the agility or nimbleness of various brands within this industry to really kind of use it to an optimum level. So what are the opportunities? I think one is really to make sure that your whole pricing and your demand generation game is optimized by using technology, right? So that's a very, very strong use case. So for that, we will look at various inputs like what is your current occupancy, what's the seasonality, what do you want to really achieve, and therefore how agile can you be with your pricing, etc. And gone are the days of the regular pricing models really working. It's really all driven by technology. That's one aspect. The second is, of course, this whole thing of content generation and social media, right? So there you're going to have huge amounts of content that are generated for almost like a segment of one in an ideal scenario. I'm not saying it's happening right now, but it can happen. With strong loyalty programs, with strong social media awareness, you can actually get to a segment of one. So, for example, what will come to you will be very different from what will go to Rinku and so on and so forth, right? So that's really the other area. And I think it is all work in progress. I will be honest to say that we are all kind of navigating through this as we speak and trying to find the most optimal solutions at a given point in time. Like someone just told me the other day, I think AI is probably the last human invention. After this, everything is going to be invented by AI and nothing going to be invented by human beings. I mean, that's of course an extreme that you can take it to. But the point is that it's going to become a very, very strong enabler to help you grapple with uncertainties and kind of overlay on your platforms of data that are already there.
So then, Dilpreet, then this is probably very close to your heart. So I am expecting a passionate defense when I'm putting you a bit on the spot here, which is if guest experiences are taking a whole other direction and you're seeing an emerging generation which you could argue in many ways is ready to trade off, let's say, a point system or a loyalty program with, let's say, a superior experience, right? What does it mean to the entire concept of fostering loyalty? What does this mean? Do the traditional programs still hold true? What are your thoughts there? And how are they potentially changing? I mean, that would be great to just grill you because you're probably living this day in and day out.
So I believe one of the biggest pitfall is that mainly people confuse loyalty with loyalty programs. So that is the biggest pitfall which is there.
That's a very valid point.
That is one thing. Second thing is, like, again, I would say loyalty is a mean to an end. So when I'm talking about a mean to an end, so like loyalty program is a driver and loyalty is something which is either a destination or something which you actually aim to do that thing. Now within loyalty also, like, again, it varies. So like, again, as per me, I believe like loyalty is primarily having 3 phases. It starts with the transactional loyalty. So wherein, like, again, whenever you are getting a good deal, whether it's for hotel or for any other brand, you will be kind of sticking to that brand. That is the transactional loyalty. Second is the behavioral loyalty. So typical example of behavioral loyalty can be seen if we just go back maybe 5 to 7 years back, when the immersion of these digital wallets, your Paytms and MobiKwik came. So like, again, initially they gave you that cashback and discounts and all, and you got stick to and hooked to that thing. But after that, like when they pulled back that thing, it was a kind of a behavior shift. So like, again, when you are paying the utility bill, so just I think like within 5 seconds or 7 seconds, you are just with a 1 click or 2 clicks, you are able to do that thing. Now, even if you are not getting these discounts or cashback, you are sticking to those portals. So that is the behavioral loyalty. Third one, which is actually a kind of a nirvana stage for any brand, is the emotional or the irrational loyalty. Today, if I'm saying, okay, so like let's suppose hypothetically, a business traveler is there who is having some work, he's coming from Delhi or some other place, he's having some work in Mumbai. So now he's having 2 choices. Either, like, firstly, it would depend like where his business meetings would be. But second is like if he's having a choice, okay, so like I have 2 hotels. One is ITC Maratha, I have ITC Grand Central also. If the person is, I was having a chat with Balaji, so he was saying like he's a kind of a pro ITC Grand Central because like due to multiple reasons. So that thing. So now I'm saying like, if I know that someone is having an affinity for Grand Central, like again, both ITC Maratha and Grand Central are having their own differentiations and the USPs which are there. But like again, if you are kind of having this loyalty, even if you have to kind of travel 45 or 50 minutes more from the airport to this place, but like you are having that emotional connect and the irrational loyalty, you will be kind of going with that thing. That is one. Second is like, again, as a brand also, you need to understand that, again, like we spoke about the loyalty programs and the loyalty which is there. Within that also, like we often confuse loyalty with retention. So retention is something like, again, like if a person is not even having a choice. So like, again, it's about the demand and supply thing. Right now, I think like still talking about the insurance sector, so a lot of private sectors are there, but still, no offense meant, but like people are having a belief that LIC is still secure. Even if the kind of experience which they are giving, yeah, table number 3 pe jao, table number 4 pe jao and stuff like that, they will still be sticking to that thing. So that is also one of the factors that, like, again, like you should not be confusing retention with the loyalty part which is there. And it's a kind of a ever evolving thing. So like, again, when you're saying like because one of the biggest problem is also like today, most of the brands, they are owning the transactions and not the customers. So one such incidents wherein, like, again, you are not able to kind of deliver the superior experience, the chances a person will be moving, and then to bring back that person would be a big task.
I think that's a fantastic point you made there, Dilpreet, which is that loyalty programs are a means to an end, and creating loyalty is not necessarily about a very specific program. And so, Balaji, we were having a chat, and one of the things you pointed out is that, for example, you pointed out to the 4 seasons model, which in many ways is completely doing away with the notion of loyalty programs in the first place, and instead is trying to build loyalty the way Dilpreet was talking about, which is go one level higher, win them with experience, right? So is that a trend? What are some of the things that you have seen?
Yes. Loyalty now is based on the consumer segment or the guest segment. The future of guest, as we talk about, is if I am a millennial, how will I handle loyalty? If I am a Gen Z, what is loyalty to me? And the next generation. The reason is, I want to keep on accumulating the point and burn at once. And the next segment is, I want serendipity moments. Another one is, if you remember me, if you know me well, every time, in every moment of truth, that's loyalty for me. Okay? So it changes among the segments of guest and consumer, and loyalty as we speak will definitely go through a transition when the transition of generation of guests will start moving around. Okay, that's where we have a lot of papers around it. That's where the loyalty as a concept is shifting. Loyalty will stay, but how loyalty will take its avatar is going to be definitely different in the coming years to come. Probably next 2 to 3 years, loyalty will change.
Got it. So this also brings into question, like you're giving this example of how preferences need to be carried forward, etc. But I'll recount to you, Deepa, an incident. Like we were doing another similar event in Gurgaon, and there were members from hospitality, and one of the speakers in that round table gave a very interesting anecdote. Right, he essentially said that he is, and I'll not name the brand, he's very close to a specific brand and chooses to stay with them wherever he goes. When he's traveling alone, he had a very specific food preference, right, in one city. But he went with family to celebrate his anniversary. And in the second city, that exact food preference was replicated in an attempt, clearly well-meaning attempt, to delight him. But it sort of backfired because that is not what he was expecting at all. If anything, it disappointed him, right? So you're speaking of not just understanding the customer, but as Balaji pointed out, the shift from a brand to another, within a brand to another, or even the context of the purpose of the travel fundamentally changes his preferences, which makes it even harder for you to latch on to say, hey, this is the preference of Subra, or this is the preference of Dilpreet, right? So, are there ways to tackle that? What are sort of your thoughts, and how would you go about doing some of these things?
Sure. I think one is that Actually, before that, I just want to make a point on one of the things which you said is that is the consumer kind of choosing between loyalty and experiences? Have you met the Indian consumer? They want everything. They're not going to trade off, right? They are
another great point. Yeah,
they're
right
the
there.
most tough
Fantastic.
consumers in the world. Now, coming back to this, I think it starts with one, your data, right? And you have a database of, let's say, past history, etc. The most complex part of loyalty is bringing it alive on the ground, which requires huge amounts of training, right? Because you may have a fantastic system in place which is there to kind of reward your guests according to various tiers, etc. But if, for example, when you walk into a hotel, the guy at the reception is expected to recognize you and know, for example, you're a World of Hyatt member, is supposed to know your preferences, because we have something called gem notes or guest experience notes, right? So we're supposed to know what you like. Now, the thing is, in spite of that, you're also supposed to figure out if that's still valid for this particular experience or not, right? So it is a constant knowing, learning, unlearning, right? It's like a relationship with any other friend or a human being, right? It's evolving. And therefore, while you may set a very strong base, that base has to be constantly adapting, agile and modified to present day. I always quote this in the context of loyalty. There was this very famous African-American poet and author called Maya Angelou, who said that people may forget what you did for them or said to them, but they will never forget how you made them feel, right? And I think brands which are very successful with loyalty know how to make the customer or the guest feel good. And even in this example that you were quoting, I think the fact that there was a translation from one hotel to another, in my mind, is good. Where the cookie crumbled is not cross-checking it with that guest to figure out if that's what he or she still wants, right? So loyalty is only as successful as one, of course, the experiences that you provide, your basic program, but what you do on the ground. How can you inspire your armies on the ground to feel passionate enough about your loyalty program, to do simple things like smile at a guest every time, right? To ask them how they are feeling, to ask them what they want. These are very, very basic, simple things, but let me tell you, the most complex to master and to kind of institutionalize. And therefore, I think brands that are the most successful are trying their best to institutionalize some of these soft aspects into a hard-coded kind of experience or loyalty program to create the best loyalty experience.
Fantastic. I do want to give you, I want to be cognizant of time, but I think Dilpreet, you might want to add something to this conversation here. So just want to question you.
No, so like, as I said that right now when I'm talking about the loyalty or maybe loyalty program, so two important drivers to that is the recognition and the privilege. Because recognition, I think like the perfect example of recognition is the frequent flyer programs which you're having for airline. The way they recognize their members is to the next level. So like I think like as a hotelier, we still need to kind of see that thing. That is one. Second is the privileges. So privileges in terms of like, again, what are the merits or what is something which is in for me as a member, why I should be enrolling into your program. That is one thing. So again, like talking about, and there is a intersection of the loyalty and the CRM which is there, because like again, coming from a traditional ops driven and the service driven background of hospitality. So the journey is like, it starts with the warm welcome and ends at a fond farewell. And we are very strong in that thing. So in between, like you name it anything and we will be able to kind of do that thing. So the trick is like how you are kind of maintaining the same thing once the checkout has happened. So there your loyalty and the CRM thing will come into the pictures, like again, all the data footprints, both the imputed and the actual ones. So imputed in terms of like the kind of feedback which you're getting from the front office, the kind of feedback which you're getting from the F&B. Okay, so like are there certain likings or dislikings or the preferences which are there? If you're able to kind of infuse that thing into the guest profile and then come up with a model, the algorithm would be there, and like leveraging on the technology and the data also. If you're able to kind of do something, so like again, you are able to kind of win back the customer to that thing. So I think that is the take on it.
I heard the bell ring, but Balaji, I do want to ask one last question to you and then close the panel, is around privacy, right? So with DPDP Act coming in, all of this, how does that change? What is your recommendation for the industry?
Increasingly, we will be, the industry will be absorbing more data. Yeah? And it's going to be at an atomic level. And one of the aspects of loyalty or preferences is trust. It takes once to break. And with the axe coming in, the next generation travelers and the guest, the one thing they expect is the clear transparency. Why you collect data, what are you doing with data, and how are you driving or how are you giving me what I expect from you from data, and how are you keeping my data safe. These are the 4 very, very important aspects a guest is looking for. If a brand can consistently, because every attempt you need to maintain the trust. If you can maintain the trust, and with this there could be a compromise on experience also, because if you can little relax, I can get that serendipity moment, but it might compromise. So the consent is very important, and to the extent in which I'm going to get the consent is important, and how I'm going to use the consent, and if it's for a limited period, am I transparently telling that yes, your consent is experienced and give me back, okay, without those disclaimers and fine prints. That will drive the loyalty, and that's where the shift is happening with respect to privacy and data.
Thank you. So I would have actually loved to grill all of you. There's so much nice conversation happening, but we are bound, unfortunately, by the event format, and maybe I will follow it up with podcast with each of you separately. I would love to do this, actually. But thank you so much, Balaji, Dilpreet, Deepa. This has been, I'm sure, a very interesting session for all of you. Thank you very much for taking the time out. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepa, Balaji, Dilpreet, and Subra for such an engaging and thought-provoking conversation. It was truly insightful. I would like to thank all the panelists with a token of appreciation presented by Praveen DS, co-founder and CTO Lemnisk. Moving on to our next topic, reimagining customer centricity with transformative AI, let me introduce the panelists. Firstly, I would like to invite Hari Shankar to join us on stage. Hari is the SVP Customer Experience at Future Generali India. He is responsible for establishing the service structure and customer culture at Future Generali. He manages the Customer Insights Program, insurance awareness, and consumer education activities, and also serves as the Grievance Redressal Officer. Under Hari's service leadership, Future Generali has received numerous national and international awards and recognitions, including the Stevie Awards for Sales and Customer Service, Medalia XP Award, and Impresa Award for Fair Business, among others. Hari has been recognized as one of the 50 most influential customer service professionals by CXLR. Welcome, Hari. Marketing, Bajaj Allianz General Insurance. He is strategic enterprise leader focused on driving change through innovative marketing, empathetic leadership, and disruption of the status quo. With over 15 years of experience in the insurance industry, Vikram has been with Bajaj Allianz General Insurance since January 2010. His roles have included heading digital marketing, serving as executive assistant to the MD and CEO, and holding positions as deputy manager and assistant manager in renewals. Prior to his tenure at Bajaj, Vikram worked as a business development executive at Matrix Cellular. He holds an MBA in marketing from West Bengal University of Technology and Bachelor of Engineering in Information Technology from Savitribai Phule, Pune University. Welcome to the panel, Vikram. I would now like to invite Shekhar Saurabh as our third panelist. Shekhar is the Chief Marketing Officer at Tata AIG General Insurance, bringing over 11 years of experience in marketing, sales, and digital strategy. A seasoned professional, Shekhar has an exceptional understanding of consumer behavior, market dynamics, and competitive landscape within the industry. In his previous stint, he was the category head of home care at Godrej Consumer Products Limited, where he was responsible for managing a portfolio of household insecticides and laundry brands that generated over 3,500 crore in revenue. His core competencies span market research, competitive analysis, strategy formulation, brand management, product innovation, and digital marketing. Shekhar has spearheaded numerous successful campaigns and product launches for leading brands, earning multiple awards and recognition for his contributions. As a thought leader in the marketing domain, Shekhar continues to shape strategies that drive growth and innovation in the insurance sector. Welcome, Shekhar. As a moderator for this panel discussion, I would like to invite Abhi Kapadia, Senior Manager, Customer Success, Lemnisk, to moderate the session. Yeah, welcome, Abhi.
Very good evening to all of you. Thank you, Mridul, for introducing the panelists here. And welcome, Hari, Vikram, and Shekhar. So, as we are knowing the topic, reimagining the customer centricity with transformative AI, right? We've all seen that over the last couple of years, AI has taken the world by storm. Starting with OpenAI's LLM model to now talking about tasks and agents and so on and so forth. There's been a lot of growth and a lot of disruption in the market. And of course, that begs the question, how can different enterprises actually leverage AI in the right manner? So let's begin. Let's get to the heart of this question right away. Right? Of course, AI requires a lot of data. And all these different businesses, we all gather mountains and mountains of data from different sources, be it social media, be it your own websites, or even your agent systems. But does all data mean better insights? Or does that mean that there's always challenges in terms of where the data is kept, or the legacy systems within that, or the quality of the data in the first place? So I would like to get to know from you, what are the specific challenges that concern you as a business the most when it comes to driving AI-driven experiences? Yes, if you can start.
Okay. You want to go first? No. So we were just talking, I checked with him how long he has been in insurance, and he said some 15 years plus. I realized I have been there some 16, 17 years plus. Something is happening right that we are not leaving the industry. Maybe we may have left the organization or so, but something is growing over there. But it's growing like a flourishing tree without like the grooming which is there in the park, the manicured park. So in data, you would like to imagine it like the manicured park. I mean, very prim and prime, very well cut, and you can make the segments also. Unfortunately, it does not work like that because insurance is very business to customer. You are not going to your customers directly, except in a few cases where your model is only to go direct to customers. Now, what are the problems it poses? You would want to get the data like the customer personal data, the property data, the thing that is insuring in a certain formats and legible also. But there is that business, the one in between, who is getting this data for you, who wants to procure it in their own way. And then there is also that tussle, that whose data is it really? Is it the customer's data? Is it the partner's data who is procuring? Or is it the insurance company's data? And in that, you have to make some sense in the mayhem. You have to make some understanding over there. So, for example, I mean, you are working with the dealers or you are working with the workshops over there, the national tie-ups. So they would say, my insurance policy is in this format. I'll just put your brand at the top. And you do not have much bandwidth to negotiate over there. Whereas if you are doing your own insurance policy, it would be different. So whatever you are procuring directly, maybe you are able to maintain a data hygiene or so. But at other places, you have to adjust. And that is perhaps where you are coming to the problem solving of how to organize this data. Some very simple and basic things to be done. I mean, some organizations may have progress to be having a full-fledged data warehouse and CDPs on top of that and the CRMs on top of that. It's not that the other organizations who do not have all these technologies are not being able to work also. They have also found their own cuts and they have found their workaround. So simple expedients like maybe deploying the master of the masters. Okay, this person is Hari, but what is he? Is he code green? Is he code blue also? So those masters when you build for your vehicles, for your hospitals, for your other things, the underwriting, so that is one thing which solves. Still, the way in which you maintain the hygiene or the architecture that you do, that is the second thing. Then you'd also look at maybe some of the AI, the tools that you would deploy over there, the fuzzy logics that you would deploy over there, or similar sounding things, or to what degree can you say that, okay, with 95% or 99% accuracy, I can say that this data belongs to this person. And yes, KYC has been helping, but then the DPDP is in the pipeline, and still there are more concerns. Earlier panelists were also talking about that. So only there is so much that you can do with the data, and it is going to get masked. And then there are further guidelines that you may not be able to use KYC as a means of only fetching contact details and using that ahead. So these are the challenges, and those are some of the solutions around that. But I would be honest to say that we do not have one solution or one talisman fitting all. You have to keep evolving and keep growing in that.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah. So one thing, one of the observation that I had with this industry is insurance, and let's say in particular that when we speak about data, there is no end vision in mind. So in e-commerce per se, like if I have to take a certain example, whenever they collect any kind of any data, they know what's the end, 5 year down the line, 10 year down the line, how I'm going to use the data, and hence how do I sort of store it so that it can be used and manifested and cut, then slice, and it can be used later on. I'll give you an example. So I was talking to one of my Amazon counterparts, and what he was saying that imagine someone who is, let's say, who is buying a women Horlicks, for instance, right now. Highly likely she might be a woman somewhere on her 20s, 25, 26, something like that. 5 years down the line, she is expected to be a mother. So after that, then you can sell mother Horlicks. 5 years down the line, you can sell her junior Horlicks. Maybe at 40, you can sell her light Horlicks, Horlicks light, which is Horlicks diabetic. I mean, that's the way you can plan. And to her kids, you can send base Horlicks. I mean, you have to have a certain vision. Of course, we want to collect data. Of course, we want to store data. Like, the entire organization is running behind that. It has got its own challenges, like silos and everything, the way we mentioned. But we need to have a certain end vision in mind, the way we build our brands, the way we build our strategy for businesses. We should have a proper targeted strategy of the data that 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, how I'm going to use it, and accordingly structure my entire ecosystem so that the entire thing can be funneled to make such use cases. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay, so firstly, the benefits of having incredible panelists, especially sir, who spent so much time in the industry. जवाबों की आवश्यकता नहीं, हम दोनों we would possibly not do any justice, but because we represent a traditional organization and we've become as ancient as that, 15 years almost in the same company. The biggest problem of using data and AI is data is always in silos, right? Especially in bigger organizations, which have been over 20 plus years in existence, they've got data in silos. So that's one big problem because AI completely functions on data, and that too data which is in a particular place where it can access it, because AI is speed, right? But if the data is all across, that becomes a problem. Secondly, the consistency of the data. Even today, most insurances is sold through our channel partners, which is offline. Now they're all entering data in whichever manner they feel is right. Now having a consistent data is also very, very critical, which is rare in today's day and age. And that's where I think platforms like CDP come into place, where they create, where they cleanse the data and make sure that it's in a format that your AI tool can understand, assimilate, and give you a response which is as fast as it's supposed to be. So I think for me, these two are absolutely critical for any AI to succeed, which is data. One, they're in silos, they have to be in one concrete place, and two, they have to be as consistent and as concise as possible, because otherwise it'll throw you output, but it'll not be the way you want to see it, because you know how the output should be, because that's how you're giving the command, but it'll never satisfy you. So that's, like, for me, these are the two challenges that I see in a traditional organization where a CDP could really play a role and where AI can get hampered if they're not in place.
No, completely agree with you, Vikram. And rightly said, Shekhar, that there are many use cases that you can actually implement, but as long as these challenges exist, it's not going to really work out. But like you mentioned, right, a woman, in her 20s, going through her 40s, and different products coming to them, that's a really beautiful use case, an exceptional use case to think about when you actually go about it. I had recently read about this other, model where the system was able to predict if the person is going to get pregnant just by the products that they were actually buying in the grocery shop, right? And that's just phenomenal. I just wanted to know from you, really curious, what are some exceptional use cases you all have come across or maybe implemented in your organization that have been transformative?
I mean, I'll not answer the question first, but what you shared about also reminded me something scary, that someone is getting pregnant and by the grocery you are getting to know, and somehow the contact number listed is that of the parent, and if it's something they wanted to tell, not tell, I mean, they are independent families, so that's also another thing. I mean, data usage, to what degree to go and to whom to go. So, yeah.
Definitely.
Anyone of you want to
Yeah,
give the answer
we've actually had in our company, Bajaj Allianz General, done 2 interesting use cases. And one was many years back, even before the whole AI, ML now has become like a buzzword. So our claims team had a review with our MD and CEO, Mr. Tapan Singhel, and they said, you know what, we've done a great job. Back in the eras, if people had cars back then, claim settlement used to take a month. Aapko bumper leke office jana padta tha. This is many, many years back. To now, they said that 24 hours and we can settle claims. And they thought they'll get promotions, increments and whatnot. And my MD said, that sounds interesting. Why can't it be minutes, right? And it blew their minds that hum 24 ghante mar ke laaye, he's saying minutes. But the beauty is they went back, and that's the comfort of being in a traditional organization. Data ki kami nahi hai. Like I said, 20 plus years of settling claims. And we've settled them enough and more to have a lot of data, right? So we created a tool called MOTS. It's called Motor on the Spot. If you're a Bajaj customer and if you have our app, Caring Leo's app, if you meet with an accident, you have to step out, click pictures of the dent, upload it on the app. In 15 minutes, 15 minutes, it tells you the estimate of the damage. Let's say it tells you 11,000 rupees is the worth. Do you want the money? Yes or no? If you hit yes, in 5 minutes, the money hits your account, which means 20 minutes, claim settled. Now, when you go to a garage and tell them, yaar, gaadi thoka hai, theek kara dijiye, he says, 8,500 ka hai. The remaining money is for you to keep. Will not come after you ki paisa wapas de do. So that's the level to which we've gone in terms of helping you settle claims. And a lot of people forget that the only product that insurance is claims, right? If I can't do that as beautifully as this, then selling policies has no relevance. So that was one thing. Second, we've got another interesting tool on our website. It's called Insurance Samjho. The unfortunate part of also being overtly educated is no one's reading their policies, right? पढ़े लिखे सब है, but policy कोई नहीं पढ़ रहा, right? And जब claim का वक्त आता है, they say ये तो मिलना चाहिए था, नहीं मिला, and then they blame companies. But you're also entitled, and you have to read your policy documents. So this tool, if you upload, you could be any insurance company customer. We don't want your data, just to place it on record here. It's in public domain. But if you upload your policy document, it'll help you understand your policy. You can actually chat with that bot to understand what's covered, what's not covered, so on and so forth. So the beauty is, the whole point at Bajaj Allianz General, what we try and do is, see, the market is huge. So there is absolutely zero chances of cannibalism. What we're trying to do is educate people. The more people understand the benefits and the power of insurance, the more they will buy. And the more they will buy, the better it is for the country at large and not just the companies. So these are 2 things that we've already implemented, and we've got a lot of positive sentiments. One is claim settlement, one is understanding the policy. So yeah.
Definitely. Those are really interesting use cases that I'm sure are impacting your bottom lines to the great end. What about you, Shekhar? Do you have anything to share?
Yeah, totally. One other thing, like rightly my friend said here, like, we want to ensure that our consumers understand what's the ecosystem like, or what's actually the entire insurance industry is all about. Like, even if right now, if I ask you to show a raise of hand and just let me know that how many of you have gone through your entire policy document papers, I mean, the answer might be like on the lower side, much lower side. We mostly don't read the papers in detail and just look at the top things and just leave it at there. And on top of that, one other thing which we realized, like from a consumer perception point of view, and this is something which is already ongoing, and I've been observing this, that at the end of it, consumers want to have a lot of items, a lot of line items for their policy, but then they want to pay at a certain level, like, minimize the cost but maximize the benefits, like a regular Indian consumer. Now, how do we do that in this insurance sector, given that, like, the medical costs are rising up consistently? One other thing which we have realized and which we have ultimately arrived at, like, several policies at times we buy, it has got multiple benefits actually which is not needed for you. So for instance, let's say I go and buy policy X with policy X, which is sort of a standard most selling, let's say, product. Now that product may not be needed by a person. Let's say this particular policy has a maternity benefit, but this may not be required by a man, but it's getting sold as a bouquet into it. Let's say someone is at a 25-year-old or 26-year-old. He may not be getting impacted by diabetic so soon, which typically tends to happen at 40. So that kind of a customization, like, we are trying to learn from our consumer basis their input and then trying to give them a certain recommendation that why don't you go take this with so and so customization, so that one, it's made for them, tailored for them, and at the same time it's at a cost which is normally slightly lower, or let's say at a certain reasonable price to them versus what they would typically pay. So that's how we are trying to address this using technology and AI. Let's see how do we go in this aspect.
That's quite interesting. I hope you achieve great success. What about you, Hari?
Yeah. Maybe they stole some of the thunder. We are 3 insurers, and many common overlaps will be there, many common grounds will be there. So I'm trying to think of something over and above that. But before I go to that, I again remember a moment of realization or an anecdote. AI was never there in the pipeline maybe 15 years back, or not that predominant. And one day, at the early stages of insurance career, like 100 workstations there and 100 people working on it. And after, working in deep work, I got up on a small break and saw around what's happening, everyone absorbed. That was a moment of realization. I felt that 100 computers are working on 100 people rather than 100 people working on 100 computers. It looks like as if the laptops and the desktops are dictating to the people. So sometimes it's a thin line which is blurring over there. You feel that you are the person who is commanding, but you are the person who is equally getting commanded, because those are the templates and the tools that you have been prescribed, and you are just following what has been given to you. So anyways, parking that aside, coming to some of the use cases, a couple of them. One, and I think when we talk AI, still 70 to 80% of the work being done is generative AI. So one of the use cases is of generative AI, and we use a chatbot representing our mascot of the lion, which is Leo. And this is not only like solving issues for the customer, of course, which is good to have, but how to make it like a human kind of AI. So this AI tool which is there actually cracks jokes, has a persona, tells things about oneself, or like understands what's there for the other person, but it has to be still careful not to rub the customer on a wrong side when they are undergoing a traumatic or a difficult time because of the hospitalization situation or an accident situation also. So that's one use case, and we see that the adoption, be it over WhatsApp, be it over the website, and be it over the app, has been picking up. That's one use case. Earlier I was talking about how, and he was talking about how insurance is very channel driven. If you have to succeed, you have to succeed with the customer in between, the channel partners, and then you will succeed with the end customer. So when we came up with new products like our do-it-yourself health, which allows the customer to customize his options in the policy, what to take, what not to take, and more like a web-driven kind of thing. And we took up the mascot of, say, Apar Shakti Kurana, who's customizing his sandwich. So we allowed the same customization to be done by our agents in the field. So when they were sending the video of Apar Shakti, they can customize with their own names or so. Or recently, when we are doing the renewal of the policies, the video which comes to them talks about the customer with their name, telling the key details, and it's an engaging kind of thing which happens there. So that, I hope, builds a little bit of wow to the customer and catches his attention at a prime time. Otherwise, there are so many reminders coming to take money out of his pocket, and maybe he can remember this nicely. What he was talking about is the comparison of the pictures and the settlement of the claims in the 15 minutes. So, in fact, some things which are meant to give better efficiencies also help the customer. So, for example, in the health claim, the early fraud detection basis the algorithms which are there, how can it help the customer if the fraud is getting detected? Is it not going to prevent money from going to him? Yes, it will help him, because 90% or 95% of the claims will not have any likely investigation requirements. So they can now be put on the fast track. And it is now to deal with those 10% or 5% where there are some flags to be looked at. So those are some very exciting use cases which are happening and which we are taking care of, and more to come.
No doubt. And I completely agree that customer delight is also a big part of how you can use AI. And while we discussed all the use cases and the challenges, one thing that you touched upon, Hari, really struck a chord with me, and which is, on that example that I was just giving in the past, that does the user actually want to know about what is going on with their life, and do they want the company to know? And that's where the point of ethics comes in, right? AI is growing by leaps and bounds, but a very big pillar of knowing and building AI is the ethics behind it, how you are using the data, how you are communicating to the customer, and many more things. What are your thoughts on, what the frameworks or benchmarks should be in ensuring that you do not, make the customer feel awry at the same time using AI to transform your businesses? Maybe you can start, Shekhar.
Yeah, sure. So, 2-3 things here in this aspect. One, of course, like most of the countries have their own set of guidelines. We also have our own guidelines and certain principle in our country. One, of course, we follow that. Apart from that, there are 2-3 things like which organization to organization varies a lot. At least I can tell you about Tata that we are very very particular in terms of what we sort of pick the data from the consumer and how do we pick that. I mean, both of them are very very important. And thirdly, we go slightly a step ahead and inform the consumer time to time that, okay, we are using A, B, C data points of yours. We have this in the repository. Do you want to sort of, because it's required for XYZ regions, and we just keep on informing them, maybe by emails or by text messages or something like that. But so that sort of communication goes. So I believe that's the transparency is very, very important, one. And second, you collect the data points which are absolutely needed. Not like, let's say, you are having, how many family members and all those things. Of course, you can use that because then at the end of it, later on, maybe you can sell another policy. But somewhere you have to draw that line, that what's actually needed for you to run that particular business and let's say, to facilitate the transaction for that particular consumer. And then you proceed along with that. I think that's I believe transparency and fairness is very, very important and critical in this aspect.
Makes sense. Yeah, Ari, I think this is a topic which is really important to you as well. Would love to hear.
No, all of us insurers on the panels and important for all of us. So I was just thinking again on that. Today I'm wearing a gray suit, but ethics is never gray. It is always black and white. And if you are wearing, your ethics right, and not lightly on your sleeves, you'll get it right most of the time. Government is not leaving, first of all, any stone unturned. There is so much which is there. Some may even say it looks like draconian DPDP to be implemented. Fines to the tunes of 250 crores can be there if you are not. So it is in everyone's interest to be on the right side of the law and to ensure that things are followed. Of course, compliance at times looks like an onerous task and looks like a burden. But again, talking about if the principles are around that which are correct. On frameworks, I think the more we audit, the more we can get it right. And I know the weakest chain into any data leaks or problems which happen is the human chain. Someone not knowing something simple as ignorance and doing something which they were not supposed to do. Accessing maybe something which could leak the data through a weak firewall or so. So those are important, the frameworks that you build for periodic audits and have a equanimous frame over there. Our friend already touched upon the need to know. What do you need to know that only, explain why you need to know that, and then how you stole that data. Again, there are regulatory frameworks around that. So if you are transparent, if you have accountability, if you have control mechanisms, if you are educating the right people, and education has to be done again and again, and perhaps if it strikes a chord on how personally also it can cause a damage to them if they get involved in something like that, then perhaps you have been able to create the movement. Because more and more data will keep on being available and we have to work with that carefully.
Makes sense, Hari.
I don't think I can add too much, but unfortunately the insurance industry is anyway notorious where people think कि claim नहीं दे रहे या policy ले ली and the works. So we have to be even more cautious because they know that ये भी नहीं हो रहा, data भी ले लिया, now what are they up to, right? So one, of course, we are very strongly regulated by IRDAI. So I think thankfully last few years they've become very aggressive. They are into the last mile, and I'm glad they do that because it's also for the end consumer. They know that if you're regulated that strongly, it's very rare that you could really misuse something that can easily be misused, right? Secondly, like both of them said, of course we constantly communicate with our customers that this is what we have. If you are uncomfortable, this is this is what you can miss out, but that's completely your call. And luckily today's generation, thanks to the OTTs of the world, they want full control. कब उन्हें देखना है, कब पॉज करना है, इवन फॉर देयर डेटा दे वांट फुल कंट्रोल, कितना पता होना चाहिए, कितना नहीं. Even if they miss out on something, I think they're okay, because that will be their conscious call, and that's something that is with today's generation, that they like to have that control, no matter how big a company or a smaller company you are, but they want full control. So I think, and companies take cognizance of that, because they know that they're dealing with that generation predominantly, and they can't take them for a ride. So in terms of following all nitty-gritties to the core, and thanks to social media, if you goof up, one customer even with 2 followers can rip you open. So it doesn't matter if you're an influencer, not an influencer. Social media is like wildfire. एक सही तीली लगी and it can go crazy, right? So I think all companies are very mindful of that. So they're very particular and cautious.
I will just add to the both the gentlemen here. Like, very, very recently, like, sometimes in our industry, even a small set of data leak in somewhere in dark web or somewhere getting reported, it's like you have to inform IRDI with all the set of things, like, what happened, why it happened, and what are you doing to prevent that. I mean, that's the kind of protocol and that's the kind of strictness this industry has. Like, even one person's data, like saying somewhere at someone, just say, let's say if someone goes out of this room and say that X insurance company's one person's data got leaked, there is a huge set of protocol to be followed after that. Like, it's so stringent. So yeah.
Yeah, and just to add to that, it's not only the data. I think your question was also around the AI. The other risk and the framework around that, I mean, one is the biases which creep in with AI. We all know AI is learning. AI is what you feed into it, and it will give the answers only as intelligent about that. So if you ask a question about Mother's Day to explain a mother, typically it will go on the homemaker side of the mother and not look at the mother as also the achiever of the world or so. Or if you look for crime, it would maybe look for the people, or terrorism for the people with the turban and the people with the long beards, or the people gun-toting, that kind of thing. A terrorist may be something very sophisticated or a different thing altogether also. So those biases weeding out in the AI that you build are also important. And earlier, I think my friend Dilpreet from ITC was talking about like how customization goes wrong. I mean, those are also frameworks to be controlled over there. So just because as a single person is eating the same thing, same happens. I mean, all these OTTs that we are talking, the music also, just because maybe 10 days in a row I have heard a bhajan in the morning doesn't mean that the 11th day I also want to hear the same bhajan. My repertoire may include the Spanish dance, or may include a yo-yo honey sing, or it could be very varied. You cannot feed. So that is the controls that we as humans have to build, that we remain the master rather than AI becoming the master. Otherwise, the Frankenstein that we create on ourselves will have to be controlled by ourselves only.
Very rightly put, Hari. I think human agency is very important in the age of AI agents. And I think that's a really great note to conclude this conversation upon. Thank you so much for sharing your insights on how we can transform the world's businesses through this new disruptive technology. Really glad to have you here again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was an intriguing and informative discussion. Thank you very much, Hari, Vikram, Shekhar, and Abhi for this. I would like to invite Rinku onto the stage to present a token of appreciation to the panelists. And Technology Officer of the Apollo Hospitals Group. In these roles, he spearheads the growth of India's largest digital health platform, Apollo 24/7, providing a comprehensive solution for users' healthcare needs. His leadership ensures the development of robust technology and digital capabilities, delivering a seamless omnichannel experience for Apollo's customers. In an illustrious career spanning over 3 decades, Madhivanan has worked across various industries including FMCG, consumer durables, technology, insurance, and banking. His expertise lies in building and scaling businesses on a global scale. Since 2012, he has led significant technological and digital transformations, serving as the ED and COO of ICICI Prudential Life Insurance, Group Executive and Chief Technology and Digital Officer of ICICI Bank, and ED and Chief Operating Officer of IDFC First Bank. Madhivanan is an alumnus of IIM Calcutta and holds a bachelor's degree in chemistry from Mumbai University. Thank you for joining us today, Madhi. As a moderator of this chat, I would like to invite Subra back onto the stage.
Madhi, I'm so excited that you're joining us today for this session. I was remarking to the earlier panel that I moderated, which was the hospitality industry, that if there are two industries which completely underwent seismic shifts, both in terms of what happened with COVID and post, right? I guess healthcare would probably rank right up there, right? So that's probably, and I think COVID did two things, of course. One is it accelerated certain trends, I would say. For example, things like remote consultations and digital health records probably got a boost, right? But I think it also maybe in some sense caught some of the players in the hospitality industry unawares, right? The pace at which it has progressed with wearable devices and things like that, right? So a great place to start would be just deep diving into the state of the industry as you're seeing it today, right? So what are some of the big kind of trends that you're seeing? What does it mean to hospitality industry as a whole? Healthcare, sir.
I don't know whether I'm lucky or unfortunate, but I have had this chance to look at this industry, the healthcare industry, both from an outside perspective as a banker, as an insurance person, but also from an internal perspective as somebody who is trying to build a digital framework for a very fast evolving a category. I think COVID woke us up in the sense that, in fact, Apollo 247 was a baby of the COVID. It was just before COVID hit us in full force. It was rough around 3 or 4 months back, around 4 or 5 years back, when this story played out. While we had players like Tata 1mg and Pharmacy, which are already there in the pharmacy side of the business, it was primarily seen as an e-commerce derivative. It was not seen as primarily as in healthcare. It was, at the end of the day, a digital way to sell pharmacy. But I think what COVID did was it brought out something which was hitherto always considered not possible in the healthcare. You cannot think of healthcare without being face-to-face with a doctor or a pharmacist or somebody who is taking your phlebo, a diagnostician who is sort of getting... So that entire theory went through, and people, both doctors as well as customers, were very grateful for this interface, which enabled them to be remote and yet being taken care of. I think that was... but since then, the reality that care will always be a combination of these two is here to stay. There is a new normal. It's not that whatever has happened in the digital has gone up, right up there and it's staying put. There is this unique blend of both physical as well as digital, which will continue to be in the healthcare industry. So there is this, I wouldn't call it an hybrid, this is a new term called an omni. There are certain cases where I would like to have the reassurance of meeting a doctor face-to-face or a caregiver face-to-face. And there are certain cases where I am very happy to be sitting remote and making this happen. So COVID was one such unknown. We had I don't know whether it's still a scare or is it something which is going away, again starting off from China. But what's happening is there are a lot of things which are here to stay now. When it comes to, especially to the healthcare, you can blame the climatic conditions, you can blame the dramatic amount of interflow which happens and whatnot, but this reality is here to stay. And for a country like India, which is so vast, where healthcare is not a luxury, it is a necessity, the industry per se is very fragmented. So on one hand, you have the Apollos and the Medantas and the Manipals of the world, which are forming the top crux. But on the other side, just across at a stone's throw, we have KEM, which is one of the mega hospitals of this country, and the care that they give us of a very unique level. And that's something which is very access driven, which is a public necessity. And the reason I'm highlighting this is it's a very fragmented industry, both at the supply level as well as at the demand level. At the supply level, the number of doctors are very limited. It's a very stringent profession. My daughter is a doctor and she's just come out. I can know the challenges that you're going through when you're wanting to do a PG and whatnot. So the supply part of the story is one side and the demand is huge. So that's another challenge and an opportunity. So it's a dichotomy. The third part of it, which we met a lot of the insurance panelists today, is this entire concept of the payer value. Healthcare is not easily affordable. When the government gives it to you, it gives it to you cheap. But when it is a private healthcare, it's huge. And for all the, when people are talking about the potential, the opportunity, I mean, I don't even know, we are experts sitting in insurance here who will talk about the kind of penetration that has happened, whether it be the life side or the health side. We have a huge population out there, but can people afford it? Can people understand it? Do people know what they get into it? So there is this unique conundrum of a provider on one side, the government, the private hospitals, the individual doctors, and on the other side, you're the payer. Are you paying out of your pocket? Are you paying out of an insurance? Even if it is insurance, what are the various dynamics? So these are the broad thought processes. But I still feel very happy that at the end of the day, a few years back, you would always think about going abroad to get superior treatment. In today's world, whether it be Delhi, whether it be Mumbai, at least the top 10, 20 locations, you get some of the really classic care, whether it be an AIIMS in Delhi or an Apollo Proton Care, which talks about cancer on the other side. I think we are able to bring down things to a level. Now, can we take it to what UPI has done in banking to, let's say, citizen scale, is a thing which you'll have to watch out over the next 5 years.
That's so. On that note, so what are the opportunities? Because you're obviously seeing this trend where potentially patient expectations are rising, changing, but our ability to cater to them, like you rightly said, is also undergoing big shifts, right? So what does this mean in terms of where the opportunities lie and where some of the challenges lie in your mind?
So let me put it in context. What do you think is the market share of Apollo? We are the number one healthcare brand in the country. Just some random guess. Not more than 10%. And that too only in Chennai, in Bangalore, a little bit in Delhi because you have got something called Indraprasth. That's how fragmented this market is. Medanta, which we all speak so positive about, or Max, they are localized in that city. In Bombay, do you see an Apollo anywhere? By the way, there is one in CBD, Belapur. There is an Hinduja, there is a Kokila Bed. So it's a very, very localized, geographic-centric, high-speciality industry. That's the opportunity. But the challenge in this case is, can I set up, like the way when I was in ICICI, we set up what, 8,000 branches, and SBI is Big Daddy. Can we set up so many hospitals? No. So this opportunity to find out what is primary, what is secondary, what is tertiary, and then accordingly serve different kind of customers at different places is a reality. So I think that's what we need to, same thing with diagnostics. Dr. Lal is one of the biggest, but I don't think he owns more than 4 or 5% of the total market because 85% of the diagnostic industry is unorganized. It's run by that local flavor. It's run by a franchisee system. So I come from very organized industries. I was a part of Pepsi. I was a part of ICICI Bank. I was a part of IDFC. Very organized, very regulated. While healthcare is regulated, it's so fragmented and it is so necessary. Healthcare is life. It's not roti kapda aur makan. Jinda rahoge to baki teenon milega ye. Pehle zindagi to chahiye. And that's expensive. I think that's where the opportunities are huge. And if I have to correlate your first question with the second, COVID also brought a huge amount of digital interface. First time people realize, so like the way what is happening in the financial services industry, whether it be UPI or digitization or people not coming to the branches, even here people have started discerning. A mother doesn't want to take her baby to the hospital because there are other fears. The baby might have a cold, but when you walk into a hospital, no matter what is the amount of a discipline that you might follow, you might always catch an infection. We don't know what kind of immunity is. So people in their minds, at least a certain segment of the people, have started differentiating when should I do digital, when should I walk in. Is a follow-up a much better story for digital rather than walking in? In a Bangalore, going to any hospital from anywhere is going to be a mind-boggling exercise. Bombay is getting there. But so I think these are the kind of behavioral things that is happening, and that's where the opportunity lies. A combination of data, knowing your customer very well, behavior-wise, condition-wise. I am a diabetic. If Dilpreet or somebody said Dilpreet is an expert in lifetime value, I'm a mega lifetime value for any hospital group. I know that over my next 10 years or 15 years, I'm going to land up in the hospital for something. So like that, the ability to, build those stories is a big opportunity. And we have not even touched the surface.
So that's actually a fantastic and very logical segue to the next question which I have. What does this mean in terms of how hospitals interact with patients? Because clearly it cannot be, in fact, even the word marketing, I would say, is almost abhorrent. In this context, but you still need to have those regular, like for example, taking your own example since you brought it up, if a hospital needs to engage with you, they need to be sensitive, but at the same time do want to send you your reminders. They want to talk about your conditions in a meaningful way. So how do you do this? How do you go about even thinking about something like this?
I can answer it in two parts. One, what do I think about it and what are we doing so badly today? I mean, both can be highlighted. All of us think about hospitals or healthcare only when there are two scenarios. One you call as a very acute syndrome, which is suddenly you got a pain in your stomach. What is it? Is it a kidney stone? Is it something else? So we call it episodic. People usually don't talk about the hospital. We always say stay healthy, stay well. You don't need to run to an hospital. So when it is an episodic, none of this marketing works. Nobody is trying to, at that point of time, what is the closest? Is there somebody who's referring to you, there is so-and-so hospital, go and get it done. So that's a big one. That's where the big money lies. Let me also put it accordingly. That's when an ambulance or your ability to reach out to hospital and get it cured is the best. But there is a much bigger story which we call as the chronic events. India, unfortunately, is a diabetic capital of the world, and similarly, like diabetes, cardiovascular, there is a lot of other chronic conditions which all of us will become a victim of given our lifestyles. The more you become wealthier, more is your sedentary lifestyle, and there are various other So that's a big story. Now, this is where I wouldn't call it marketing, but a concept of continuum of care which you're able to build. Somebody made that example of a Horlicks, about how a woman gets different kind of an Horlicks. That was in the form of a material output. But think of it in the context of, my dad was a diabetic. When I was young, I didn't know, but somewhere you picked it up. Medical sciences today, when it comes to whether the technology, DNA mapping, has the ability to predict how my kids would be and how the family could be. Can a hospital, in a responsible way, hold this data, build what is called as a DNA footprint or a customer footprint? I mean, I'm a banker 20 years, so typically it's a good KYC. You can't get it better than that. You have a file which keeps becoming thicker and thicker. Every consult that you have, every test that you do is adding to that file in the form of a data which is available digitally. It's both a responsibility and an opportunity. Responsibility in terms of the privacy and confidentiality, but opportunity because you're able to then take care of me, and my family. Now, you walk into any of the hospitals, we have I think if I'm not mistaken, the old Global, which is renamed Glen now. If you walk into it, you go with a paper folder. Can you imagine your insight is sitting in that paper? The ability to convert that paper into a digital input and build it in a very organized way is a mega opportunity, not just from a marketing perspective, but from a care. And this is where I think our chairman, who's 93 years old, who is responsible for the Apollo, keeps talk about 3 C's. He calls it care. You have to continuously be talking about care for your patients. Then comes the affordable cost, because India, which is the second C in his mind. And third is clinical outcome. No matter what happens, when you treat 100 people, did 95 come out of them on their legs, or 5 of them go, that is an obsession. And if you can do that at an effective cost, damn good. And if you can provide a payer model through an insurance mechanism with a much larger ecosystem, that's fantastic for the nation and for the overall. So I think this is able. But are we doing it? No. Today morning, I got a call from a very, very strong mentor of mine who said, Madhi, I went to your app. Early in the morning, I was having an headache. I opened the app. I wanted a simple paracetamol. But in that home page, you're bloody cross-selling me insurance. You're telling me when to do the next consult. What are you going to buy? Oh, it is winter, so therefore winter care products. She gave me a mouthful early in the morning. But if you ask my marketing guy, that's what he's driving, because he is trying to look at a long-term value of this customer who has taken down my app. Can I be an Amazon on one side? Can I be a Practo on the other? And can I be a Dr. Lal on the third? And by the way, can I support my Apollo hospital in the form of traffic? So when this comes, now this, while I'm using data beautifully, and I'm running some of the best LTV models in the back end, from a consumer's perspective, who's looking at it as Apollo, which stands for care and trust, is it delivering? I have no idea. So, and we are doing this to what, 20 million customers? Or maybe सुबह से उठ के ये पूछूंगा बे आज कितना धंधा हुआ. So I think this conundrum is something which we have to manage, and if we can find a way, and unlike Zepto, which my wife opens out 5 times in a day and orders $300 worth, my app is going to get opened maybe once or twice in a month, and that too when I want a medicine or I'm genuinely having a problem and I want to consult somebody. So here is this battle of, are you an e-commerce? Are you an insurance company? Are you a healthcare company? So the ability, but all of them are important for the continuum of care. So how do you build it? How do you take care of the chronic? How do you ensure that the Blinkit's ambulance story is viral? Because it's genuinely there is an underlying need. Now, how do you make that happen? So I think those are the play that we are looking at. So the relevance, the sensitivity, the ability to do not marketing, but to understand exactly when should I help you? When would you need my help? Can I anticipate it? The medicines that you're buying, your molecules are suddenly changing. Is it a harbinger of something wrong going to happen? Can I warn you? That's not marketing. That's taking care of you. But then doing it very intelligently on an n equal to 1. It's not a segment. You're a segment of 1. You are buying an XYZ Januvet or whatever for a particular way, and suddenly if somebody has recommended that you need to buy something else, chances are you'll end up in a hospital 3 months down the line. And every incident that we speak about, a 40-year-old passing away through cardiac arrest, etc., I think a lifestyle, our stresses are so very unique. It's a mega opportunity to serve. How do we do it is, we'll have to see how it plays out.
So you spoke of course, 2-3 things in the context of why this is being done badly in your own words, although I'm sure there is progress being made. And of course, number 1. Number 2, you spoke of how digital health records are still not getting digitized, and therefore your understanding of the patient and therefore your ability to deliver on the care cost clinical outcomes is not coming through, right? In many ways, you could argue that you maybe do a good job of episodic, but not necessarily chronic. Why is that? Is it fundamentally, and maybe you can take a technology/data perspective to this, right? Because I'm sure there are facets that you can cover in terms of why we are not able to do this well. But if you purely take a data/tech perspective, what do you think is going wrong?
First and foremost, data is in silos. It's not there in one place. Healthcare is roughly where banking was 20 years back, when we didn't have a CIBIL, when we didn't have an IRDA, which had a insurance base. Healthcare has a lot of data within the hospital, within their servers. Even for a group like Apollo, which has a pharmacy, which has diagnostics, which has home care, which has hospitals, which has clinics, each one of us has our data in our respective servers. Whether it be because they're separate entities. When we had Apollo Munich, which was an insurance company, it was a standalone entity, which had its own data. So the biggest, and now take it to the India level. What Ayushman Bharat is trying to build is an equivalent of a DigiLocker for health records. The concept seems powerful, the concept seems fantastic. But is there a uniformity of code? When you talk about the technology lens, do we have a protocol which is similar to a backend protocol which says that this is how you should measure blood pressure, this is how you should document a particular record? So that's the ecosystem play. But even within a group, the fact that you have different silos, data might not necessarily be complete. data might not necessarily be uniquely cleaned up is a huge one. 10 years back, I cannot imagine that there's possibility. But today, there is a possibility of actually creating a data world and not let Google and Amazon do it, but actually build it yourself and create that value and convert raw data into what I would call as processed and unique data, and then convert that into insights which will help us take care. So that's a possibility, but I think siloization, lack of completeness, inability to constantly validate whether this data is correct or wrong is important. So what we will need, if I have to look at an India level, an equivalent of a Sybil or an Experian which talks about at a public level, but even within organizations, an extremely strong data culture which has the ability to treat every customer as unique and constantly build this file. For me, insurance is one leg. For me, diagnostic is another piece of paper. Now, but it's not just again one person. When you look at my data is a combination of me, my wife, my children, and my mother, because that's whom I support, and that's my front end. I'm the payer. So this story, your ability to discern it, slice it into pieces, are the ones which tech should help us today. And today it's possible, but things needs to happen.
Especially so in your case, and this goes back to some of the conversations that I've had with you. What have been, maybe if you had to call out 2-3 big learnings or your own understanding of how to make this happen, what would those look like?
I'll give you 2 again examples. In IDFC, I spent around 4 years. It was a new bank. The biggest achievement was creating a data pipeline engine. The concept of ingesting data of your financial, it is much less sensitive. I mean, compared to health, it's virtually nothing. I mean, kitna paisa aaya har month savings account mein, credit card mein kitna spend kiya. Multiple different core banking systems which is taking the feed and putting it. It took us around a year and a half just to put a basic data lake in process. I'm not talking about data mine, but a data lake. And then running the pipeline engines and making that run with a very high degree of efficiency and whatnot. ICICI still built it on a classical data mart module. Technology has progressed. Apollo is already on the cloud. Unlike the banking system which was not on the cloud, here Apollo has it's already sitting on a GCP, somebody is sitting on an Azure, somebody is sitting on an AWS. So data is available, but your ability to bring it together, build what I would call as a composable, how do I put it, in your language, the CDP, an equivalent of a composable CDP, which is not a rigid structure but has the ability to play around differently, is very important. So if I have to look at it, I need to look at the same data from different lenses. One day I look at it from an insurance lens. The other way I look at it from a payment lens. The third day I look at it from a chronic lens. Or the 5th day from a episodic bit of how many cardiovascular patients, which is a big, there is a term called Congo in our language. Congo is nothing but cardiac, onco, N stands for neuro, the mental health cases are going dramatically high. G stands for gastro, and the last O stands for orthopedic. Can all of you identify with it? All the 5? This is our segmentation. We spoke about the hospitality industry, talk about Gen Z. We call it Zen H, and say the H is in various different ways. And that people that are wellness people who are supposed to be exercising every first year, etc. So anyway, so that's the story. So the different views, whereas when a doctor looks at it, he is not bothered about everything. When you come in, do I know Subra's history? Can I treat him so well because somebody else has already done the heavy work? I don't have to go through 20 pages. I should not miss out something which is there in your record, and as a good doctor, somebody should have done that work for me. So we have something called as a clinical investigation engine, which is driven by machine learning language. If that engine needs to run, and if that needs to get into an AI tomorrow, I need the data, underlying data to be good. If my underlying data is picking up my mother's data and showing it to the doctor as my data, then I'm in a mess. So I think this kind of the ability, this is the challenge. Ingestion, making a data clean room, and now with DPDP becoming an act, can I use it? How do I get the consent? How do I tell you that, boss, this is for your information? You will first say, you will take the data and send me an insurance policy tomorrow. Or you'll try to badger me with phone calls for something else. All of you guys spoke about partnership, right? How do I build a partner? I don't want to give my data to the insurance company, but I want to sell that product so that it becomes a seamless experience. Now, is there a way to manage it through a macro data? So I think as the DPDP Act flows in, we'll have to take care of the governance story. Once you do the governance story, I think the biggest opportunity for us is the ability to cohortize each one of them. Diabetics in Tamil Nadu versus diabetics in Punjab. Very different kind of a set. So anyway, we can keep going on. This is a kind of the way, but it's a lot of hard work. In my mind, at least it's around 2 to 3 years. The lack of tech, the lack of the ability to stitch it together, but the opportunity is fantastic. I mean, I have seen technology grow over the last 20 years. I think the era that we are in is mine. Unfortunately, I'm getting old, so somebody else will run it. But we'll play.
No, but to end the session, I just want to, since you said technology has developed incredibly in the last 20 years, I don't think it's going to stop. So wearable tech as well as AI is only going to keep growing exponentially. So if you had to fast forward, let's say a decade down the line, what does the world look like for you, the healthcare world?
I wouldn't even go down a decade. Last 3 months back, I was in San Jose, and I met one of our some old Gujarati friend who left India 20 years back and was a multi-billionaire. And he was talking about a concept called agentic AI. Check out this company. It's called Hippocratic.ai, which was on stealth and it has come out. What he is effectively doing is he's using publicly available data, building an equivalent of a med LLM, and then creating, in a way, a nurse or a coach who will be able to take care of specific ailments. So diabetic, PCOD, menstruation when you're switching over, the menopause-related activities. So building the huge knowledge base and converting it into almost like an assistant. And in the US, it's huge because of the dearth of nurses, dearth of health assistants. Doctors don't want to go beyond what is told to them because of the insurance laws and the very strict. So the ability to, and this agent talks to you. It talks to you like the Siri or an Alexa. And that story is building out in a dramatically fast way. So that's one. India does not have the problem of not having people, but do we have skilled people? Do we have the familiarity? I think Deepa spoke about the opportunity to institutionalize behavior. Taj has done it beautifully. When I go to a Taj Coromandel or a Taj, there is a certain level of, now can I do it in the hospital? The nurse who is in an OBG ward, who's so stressed, will she be able to behave with a smile on her face when she is delivering? So is clinical care more important or what it is? So I think when you build tools like this, which is not replacing human beings, but is actually making them a mega productivity enabler, that's what we want to do. And healthcare will never become 100% automated. It will always need the arm of a human being, whether it be a nurse or a clinical assistant or a doctor. But if there is a superpower called an agentic AI, which is within the framework, does not do biases, and that last mile can be sorted by this human being, I think that's the vision that we're looking at. So imagine India can become Dr. Reddy went and met our PM, and while he was explaining the vision, I believe PM Modi said, yes, he said, we want to build it in India, we want to take care. Well, no, you should heal the world. Try to become the equivalent of an Infosys so that you're building the capability here. Without our people going out, is there a possibility of taking care of those? And that's possible today.
I can't think of a more perfect moment to end this session. Madhi, thank you so much. This was so insightful for all of us. Really, really appreciate your time. Thank you. I thought this was a fantastic session. So big round of applause for Madhi. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madhi and Subra, for this thought-provoking and insightful chat. Your perspectives were truly enlightening. I request Subra to present a token of appreciation. Madhi. Let us now move to our final panel discussion on churning the ocean of customer data. For this, I would like to first call on the stage Kunal Mehta. Kunal, Global Data Platforms owner at Kimberly-Clark, brings over 18 years of experience in delivering data-driven solutions across industries like auto, finance, banking, travel, CPG, and retail. He leads initiatives across data engineering, sciences, and analytics to drive incremental sales in 130 plus markets across EMEA and APAC. Kunal explores generative AI with frameworks like LangChain and LangFlow, leveraging LLM models like OpenAI to build modular applications solving business challenges. He empowers CXOs with data-backed insights to optimize spend and boost metrics such as sales, revenue, margins, and conversions. With a track record of managing 100 plus exceptional resources and key accounts globally, Kunal has led teams across the US, UK, APAC, and EMEA. His expertise spans analytics consultancy, BI driven insights, advanced analytics, media optimization, digital enablement, and creating cloud based data pipelines backed by exceptional leadership and communication skills. Welcome, Kunal. Next, I would like to introduce Varun Krishna. Varun is an award winning digital marketing leader with over 20 years of experience driving customer acquisition, engagement, and revenue growth for leading organizations including VP Bank Vietnam, McKinsey and Company, and DBS Bank, among the others. Recognized for leveraging AI and MarTech solutions, he has redefined customer acquisition strategies, personalized customer journeys, and unlocked growth opportunities in the banking and financial services sector. Now focusing on generative AI, marketing automation, and emerging technologies like AI agents and no-code platforms, Varun is shaping the future of how businesses engage customers and achieve remarkable results in today's dynamic digital era. Welcome, Varun. And to round off the final panel of the day, I would like to invite Manik Bhamri. Manik is a visionary leader with over 15 years of extensive experience in the banking and financial services industry. As the head of digital transformation and innovation at Protean eGov Technologies Limited, Manik plays a pivotal role in shaping the future and the organization through cutting-edge strategies and innovative solutions. Manik's career is marked by his expertise in API banking and his deep understanding of the evolving digital landscape. Having held key roles across leading banks, he has honed his ability to drive transformative initiatives that balance risk and opportunity, ensuring sustained growth and agility. His forward-thinking approach empowers Protean eGov to remain at the forefront of the industry, delivering innovative, efficient, and secure solutions. Welcome, Manik. Along with them, I would like to call Aditya Agrawal, Senior Director, Client Operations at Lemnisk as well, to moderate this session.
Good evening, everyone. Manik, Varun, Kunal, thank you for joining us for this panel today. The topic of discussion for this panel is churning the ocean of customer data. I think throughout this evening, across all the panelists we have had, all the guests we've had, we have heard the importance of data. And I think it is an understatement how important data plays a role in all of our lives on a day-to-day basis. There's a very interesting quote which I was going through, that absence of data is equivalent to being deaf and blind on a freeway. So when you look at customer data and talk about customer data, specifically in today's day and age, a customer is spoiled with choices. I hope you're all very familiar with that. A customer today not just have options from different brands to choose, but then how that customer also interacts with that brand. So when you look at that particular customer and the possibilities of how customer can interact with those brands, whether it is a mobile app, whether it is a website, a social media engagement, or a call with a sales agent, you have data scattered across different systems and different teams. So that brings us to our first question, that when you have data scattered across different systems and different teams, what sort of challenges you have faced in creating that comprehensive and actionable single view of the customer, and how have you addressed those challenges? Manik, if we can start with you.
Yeah, sure. So I guess at Protein, erstwhile and SDL, if people do not know the recent name, we deal with a lot of data. So we are custodian, we issue PAN cards in India, we are the NPS CRA, we are the Atal Pension Yojana CRA. So in that sense, we hold a lot of data. So 450 million plus PAN cards we have issued in the country so far. So there's a lot of data flying around, and we are custodians of that. So coming to the point, the challenges, and I have first-hand experience, dealing with this situation right now. Data, customer comes to us through various platforms. Say, for example, a contact center, or sending us emails, through our web applications, through mobile applications, and we are not able to make any sense out of it. That's one of the major problems that we have faced. So this is basically, like Madhi also mentioned, data silos. all these applications are different and they are not talking to each other today. And that's, I guess, problem with most of the organizations today. The second is the quality of data itself, which means the data is not in the right shape and form to be able to use. Marketers cannot run campaigns on data which is not in the right shape and form. The third I've seen is the identity challenge, which means the customer is coming to us through various channels, through various touch points, and we are not able to make any sense out of it, which means only if there is a, so of course, as much as there are challenges, there are solutions to it. For example, we apply deterministic and probabilistic matches. Deterministic simply means that, if there are identifiers to customers, for example, there's a cust ID organizations will have, or there is an email ID, there is a name, there is a phone number, there's a clear identifier. In probabilistic matching, we use statistical algorithms basically. So there is a 75% name match, or there is a 80% address match, or there is a IP which he has used the same device to access different channels. So there is a statistical probability around it. So using these techniques, we solve these problems. But yes, there are certain these challenges are there.
Yeah, so I represent VP Bank in Vietnam. So essentially in Vietnam, we've seen that there's been a huge digitization that's happened post-COVID. In India, the time of demonetization is when all of us got onto digital platforms, right? So that's really happened in Vietnam post-COVID. So, in terms of the data, what we're seeing now is, again, there's a lot of data siloization. So there's a certain segment of customers that we have who are extremely digitally savvy. So we have fairly clean data about them, right? So people who are transacting on the app, etc. But it's really those customers who are still going to the branch channels and, talking to our agents as well as the customer service folks. That data is not particularly clean. So, in order to circumvent that, we have over the past year and a half set up a data lake. And, a lot of our data now sits on the cloud, powered by AWS and Azure and a few other technologies. And really now there's a process of the entire consolidation. And of course, as AI gets more and more advanced, we will need to have, the entire data, in place in order for it, to kind of, supplement accordingly. So those are some of the issues that we face. Secondly, also there are now very, very strict laws in terms of customer consent that are happening across the Southeast Asia region, including India as well. So customer privacy and customer consent are something that we need to capture, because those are auditable. So yeah, these are some of the primary ones that we face right now.
Great. Last couple of hours have been very depressing for me, by the way. And I'll tell you the reason why. So I'm coming from a CPG organization. Our biggest brand is Huggies, right? Till now, we were thinking that our biggest competitors are not Pampers, YouTube, Instagram, all these people, because this is where IPL, Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi and all that, because people are actually going ahead and spending a lot of time on these activities than making babies. And honest to God, I thought that people going on those little romantic vacations would mean that maybe a few months down the line, we'll go ahead and solve this problem. But in the second panel discussion, Deepa told us that people are actually going ahead and preferring vacations over making babies. So even that seems like a bummer to me. So about this problem now, right? So most of the organizations are data rich and insights poor. The CPG problem is that we are data poor, insights poor. We do not really go ahead and talk to our consumers. I mean, our consumers are little babies, but we don't even go ahead and talk to our customers, right? We go ahead and sell to the retailers, the Tesco's and the Sainsbury's and the Walmarts and the Walgreens of the world. They go ahead and take our product to the customer, right? So we do not own our customer, we do not own the transactions, we do not own the relationship, we do not own the engagement, right? So my biggest problem is get me the data somehow, right? So what we try to go ahead and do is we go ahead and try to partner with data providers, the likes of LiveRamps, the likes of Trade Desk, right? Not that we do not go ahead and collect data, we do go ahead and collect data. We do have really nice websites and all that, where we go ahead and provide a lot of information about pregnancy, about potty training. We go ahead and provide a lot of information about how to go ahead and take care of babies and all these kind of things. At the very same time, there are, we do have other products as well, like Kleenex tissue, right? So we do have apps like Pollen Pal and all that, which will go ahead and tell you on the basis of the weather, the season and all that, what are the chances of pollens in the environment and how you can go ahead and prepare yourself for the pollen season and all that, right? So we get data from all these kind of places, but this is very limited data, very, very small set, right? So we go ahead and utilize this data as seed audiences in places like live ramps and trade desk, and then try to go ahead and build lookalike models on top of that and all that, right? So these are some of the challenges that I go ahead and face. Number one, I am data poor. Secondly, the data that I'm getting from these partners, whether that be live ramp, trade desk, our retailer partners like Tesco's and Walmart, I have to go ahead and trust it. It's a black box out there, and they go ahead and tell me, trust me, dude, this is good. And I have to go ahead and trust that, right? And the only person who can trust on data is the one who collects it. The rest, everyone has 0% faith on that data, correct? So that is my second problem. That the data, forget about trusting my own data, I cannot, because it's not really my data, so I cannot go ahead and trust it as well, right? So these are some of the challenges that I go ahead and face day to day, right? And then because I said that we do have different products, different brands, Cortex, Andrex, Kleenex, Huggies, and all these kind of products, right? But I cannot really go ahead and get data from all these brands in one single place because of legal issues, right? We do go ahead and take consent from our users on brand basis. We cannot go ahead and take one Kimberly-Clark umbrella consent from our users. So these are some of the challenges that we go ahead and face every single day, right? So we are looking for partners who can actually go ahead and provide us that reliable data about our customers, about the segments that we can go ahead and reach out to, so that we can go ahead and stitch together a meaningful profile of our consumers. So these are some of the challenges that I go ahead and face every day.
I think great to hear inputs from three of you coming from the three different industries. But a few things which stand out is obviously data being in silos, a lack of quality and trust in the data. So obviously there's a big challenge in creating that comprehensive and actionable customer one view as we talk about it. And that customer one view is also will stand true to its value, not only in terms of just collecting the data and showing it, but as you guys mentioned, gathering insights from it. Because as we discussed about the fact that you have customers who are interacting maybe not directly or indirectly with your brand, you would also want to engage with your customers on those touch points, and meaningfully so, where the customer experience is great, there's consistency in communications and all of those things. So when you look at that perspective, right, what are some of the best practices you've seen or you've implemented, which and other businesses can implement, where there can be like orchestration connection with all these different touch points, and accordingly a seamless customer experience can be established? Kunal, if you can start with you.
Sure. So some of the things that we go ahead and do is, number one, we have really established our partnership with retail media networks now, right? And I would want to go ahead and underline this thing. There are a lot of business who cannot go ahead and reach to the end consumers by themselves. It's extremely important that you go ahead and have a partnership with people who can go ahead and talk to the customers, right? And you go ahead and force these partnerships, you go ahead and get this data so that you can, with the help of technologies like Clean Room, so that you do not know who you are going ahead, whose data that you are going ahead and looking into, but you are getting the right, accurate insights from there so that you can go ahead and understand about your customers, right? So this is something that we have started doing, by the way, and retail media network is picking up. It is going, it has done really well within US, in other geographies like UK, Brazil, and all that, Australia. This is where we are going ahead and picking up. One more thing that I would want to go ahead and tell you is that businesses like ours are very market specific, are very geography specific, right? So what you are doing in Australia, you might not be doing in Brazil. What you are doing in Brazil, you might not be doing in UK, right? So there are two things which are extremely important for us. Number one is repeatability, how much a solution can be repeated. Number two is reproducibility. If I go ahead and run the same solution again, it will go ahead and give me the same insights and everything as well. This goes ahead and shows that I have accurate data as well, right? So these are some of the things that you can go ahead and utilize in your own businesses, that you can go ahead and forge those partnerships from where you can go ahead and get data if you are data poor. And if you have enough amount of data, make sure that whatever processes and products that you are building, they are reproducible and they are, you can go ahead and reuse them as well, those solutions.
So, from a bank point of view, we're acquiring close to about 35-40% of customers now through the app. So that becomes quite seamless. So essentially, from an onboarding, experience, we've working with several marketing automation platforms now to orchestrate a particular journey, which is segmented by the type of customer, right? So from a banking point of view, we are targeting the mass customer, to mass affluent, all the way to the affluent customers, right? So one is about identifying what kind of customer you are, basis signals. And then it's really about having that personalized customer journey from an onboarding point of view in terms of what are the kind of products that, which appeal to you the most. And we're working with our AI and machine learning teams internally to come up with propensity models. And through that, at the time of onboarding itself, we're able to give you a particular offer. We're also able to kind of figure out if you're eligible for a home loan or a credit card, and those offers get delivered. In Vietnam, there's, and Southeast Asia as well, there's a peculiarity that links are not allowed in email and as well as SMS. So our ability to communicate is sort of limited to push notifications as well as the app. And hence it becomes really important to have a fantastic user experience on the app, which becomes sticky. Right, so the customer feels compelled to, come back to the app, and and as long as it's personalized, we've seen that the open rates become much higher, right? So from a communication point of view, on the push notification, as well as the information that we put out on social media, which is also segmented and leading right up to the app experience, right? So I think it's about orchestrating that journey end to end. So it's much more easier for a pure digital customer, becomes slightly more challenging for a branch customer because some of the reasons. But I guess once we have the entire data orchestration in place, it will become more seamless end to end. Because today customers going from one channel to the other, right? So depending on the use case or the need, so hopefully it'll get better from here.
So I'll give a more technical response to this. Because we are in a more of a monopolistic business. There is no industry benchmarking here. So for me, integrating the source of the data with the common platform is very critical, is what I think. Once you have that, once you have live data streaming into your platform, you can create a 360 view of the customer. Now, once that is done, then there comes the AI layer over it, which will help you do behavioral analysis, sentiment analysis, which will help you do predictive analytics. Once you do this, of course, the story does not end here. Then you build the journeys for interventions, right? For example, somebody comes to my website to apply for a PAN card. On page number 5, he drops off. Okay, immediately I'll send a WhatsApp message saying that, why don't you just, that's a nudge, right? A soft nudge. Why don't you just come back and complete the journey? Okay, same way for an e-commerce company, maybe it could be, we have added items to the cart and we, at the final page of payment, we just abandon the cart. Immediately a nudge can go to the customer saying, that why don't you just come and complete your purchase? Okay, just a month back, for example, I was about to take a subscription of a news channel through their mobile app, and I left the journey at the last page. Till date, I'm getting nudges on my WhatsApp. Why don't you just come and do your purchase? So I guess that's how we bring the experience at the same time ROI for the organization, right? We help customers complete the purchase.
I have a follow-up question. Was that news channel magazine able to convert you successfully?
Very soon, it seems, if they stay persistent, yes.
I think there were a few interesting topics touched around the ways you're engaging with your customers. Kunal, you talked about the essence of understanding what works in one geography doesn't work in the other, about understanding whether something worked once can be reproduced again, can be repeated again. Varun, you talked about the hyper personalization angle, there's marketing automation angle, orchestration across different channels, and then also introducing concepts of AI and ML, which leads to propensity modeling and understanding how it can predict certain things in terms of customer engagement. Similarly, as you mentioned, Manik, in incidents of nudging or nurturing where you're pushing users forward in the buying journey and seeing whether the user converts. So these are different possibilities in ways you can engage with the customer. But when you look at all these different possibilities, and you also look at the scale at which you operate, at an enterprise scale where there are thousands and millions of customers you're engaging with across different audiences, different segments, different channels, what sort of best practices you implemented or you would recommend to accordingly measure the impact, and accordingly then deciding that, okay, in Kunal's words, whether this is repeatable or not repeatable, and accordingly deciding how to change something and go about it. Varun, if you can start with you.
So from a banking point of view, and especially if you're running a digital channel, it becomes a little short-sighted, right? So it's always focused on KPIs of new sales, etc. But I think from a measurement point of view, it's important to look at the LTV. So that's really one. So in terms of looking at the overall lifetime value of the customer, I think that's important. But I think from a broader perspective, one has to look at it a little strategically. I think we are at a very interesting time where consumer expectations will be changing very rapidly with AI, right? So today, all of us are using ChatGPT to ask all kinds of questions. I really believe that people will be using a banking app as well as an assistant, right? So I call it like not IA, but not AI, but IA, which is an intelligent advisor, right? So imagine bank as an advisor, which you're able to chat with, converse with, and it knows you, it nudges you at the right time. Madhisa's example was also good that, when you go into Apollo and you're looking for, specific use case, specific ailment, it's trying to cross-sell you everything. And that really resonated with me because, all my communication is driven as per my KPIs rather than potentially what the customer really needs. But I think with AI and that hyper-personalization going forward, we should be able to achieve that, right? So think of banking or the banking app as an advisor. And I really think that that's where it should head. So banks have to hence look at it at a slightly bigger picture and more strategically. Also I think that Madhis also spoke about the entire AI agent space, and I think that's also going to be very interesting in terms of how marketing operations are also streamlined as well as become more efficient, right? So you can have a great campaign, but when it goes to a call center, they may not have the right script, or they may not be able to deliver the product in the most effective way. And I've seen that across, right? I mean, recently I was buying a car, and of course I went to Carvale, and all the information was there. And then I went to the different websites, and all I wanted was a test drive, and I submitted my lead on 5 different sites. And most of them did a fairly poor job. Two car companies did a great job, and they gave me the test drive at the right time, and I actually ended up closing the deal. And there was one company that called me after a week, and now they're consistently pinging me on WhatsApp and everything. I'm like, dude, I've already bought the car, right? So don't bother me anymore. So I think somewhere down the line, marketing also needs to be looked end to end from a customer experience point of view. It's my view that probably AI agents will be able to nurture the lead a lot better, probably even outcall the lead, and then pass on the distilled information to the sales agent to go out and close, right? So I believe that we're at a cusp of a productivity evolution with AI, and with the right data orchestration, MarTech stack, CDP platforms, I think can really make that happen. So I think now's the time to really look at it slightly more strategically rather than only looking at it from a KPI point of view.
Sure. So I'll go ahead and give you very generic guidelines, right? So best practices that we have noticed within Kimberly-Clark, right? Because we are a manufacturing company, so our DNA is that, right? So there are 7 promises that every product, every project has to go ahead and make, right? Number 1, increase productivity. Number 2, enhance quality. Number 3, reduce consumption. Number 4, reduce the cost. Number 5, strengthen the safety. Number 6 is to constant monitoring. And number 7 is preempt maintenance. Every product, every project, data, non-data, manufacturing, whatever, it has to go ahead and quantify the impact on all these 7 promises. Even if it's less, it's more, doesn't matter, but it has to go ahead and quantify impact on these 7 parameters. Number 2, we always go ahead and start small, but we go ahead and do it fast. The reason is we go ahead and spend a lot of time in planning. So your focus, a lot of time has to go in planning. I know everyone goes ahead and we have this knack of doing it, completing it in a hurry, right? But we have this framework of crawl, walk, run, fly. A lot of work has to go, a lot of effort has to be put in planning phase. So this is why we start small, but we start at very pace. Our next principle is we do not mind failures. Only 2 caveats. Number 1, sooner the better, smaller the better. That's about it. These are the principles that we go ahead and follow to go ahead and create any kind of a product, to go ahead and any kind of a project. So these are our best practices.
So to measure the impact, I think the common sense says, analyze the pre and post, right? Pre and post analysis, set the baseline, set KPIs as per your organization needs, and move ahead. I guess second could be quantitative and qualitative analysis. Now quantitative is more of looking at the real numbers, the repeat customer rate, or lifetime value, or how many products per customer, etc., etc. The qualitative part is basically going to the why these numbers. So of course that will come through surveys, through CSAT, NPS, through social listening, and there are tools for that. The one of the most important one, according to me, is the attribution modeling. Now, the marketing folks would, of course, understand these marketing terminologies, but this essentially means giving credit to the touch point, to the channel, which has helped you convert the customer, in simple terms. So there are, single touch attributes. There are multi-touch. Simply means, would you give credit to the first touch point where the customer came, or would you give to the last, or would you distribute across? So these are the models which are readily available. Any evolved data platform will have these models built into it. So, and there are, of course, customized reports you can take out from the system, and you can do the analysis. Yeah.
I think some great thoughts about all the topics we touched upon in terms of creating that customer one view, gathering insights from it, and accordingly acting and measuring that particular impact which that action has. So that brings us to the conclusion of this particular panel discussion. Kunal, Varun, Manik, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kunal, Manik, Varun, and Aditya for a captivating and informative discussion. I would like to invite Praveen to present a token of appreciation to the panelists. This brings us to the end of the CDP Summit 2025. Would like to invite Subra, CEO Lemnisk, for the closing address.
I think hopefully all of you had a fantastic time today. I think the quality of conversations was extremely high. So I hope you all are taking something away. Thank you to all of you that are attending here. Thank you also to our esteemed panelists for really elevating the conversation today. The floor is now open for networking and dinner. I request all of you to continue engaging and have a great evening, all of you. Thank you so much.